Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Hustler Paterson coming to you live from the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario. Big buzz around Toronto tonight for the Blue Jays home opener. And I'm looking forward to taking in some incredible curling at the Princess Auto Grand Slam Players Championships going on over the next few days. We'll have some content on that, some of the top Manitobans, as well as, of course, Jennifer Jones, Reed Carruthers, and the rest of the Princess Auto teams in the event. But I think you know where we're starting, and we're going to focus in on today. That, of course, is the Winnipeg Jets could clinch tonight. 1 point away from getting that final spot in the Western Conference after a big win last night against the San Jose Sharks. We'll break it all down with Michael Remis. Jamie Thomas is going to join us from the Twin Cities, as will Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. We'll talk a little bit more about the upcoming playoffs and the home team tonight with our good friend Jessi Pierce of Bardown Beauties and NHL.com in the Twin Cities. So, busy show today. Lots of excitement coming out of a real fun night for fan appreciation last night. And the Winnipeg Jets showed their appreciation by putting a half a dozen past James Reimer, who had absolutely stoned them in their first two meetings of the season. So lots of excitement around Jets Kingdom right now because, of course, this team needs 1 point in either tonight's game or Thursday in Colorado, or Nashville not to get a point in either of their final two games against Minnesota or Colorado for the Jets to clinch that eighth and final wildcard spot. You'll notice I didn't mention the Calgary Flames because they're out. They lost the loser leaves town match, and we'll certainly get to that in a minute. Just before we get going and bring Michael in, a big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen, in particular Princess Auto, the incredible support we've had. Looking forward to getting out to the Princess Auto Players Championship. That's going to be on Sportsnet, by the way. Games and broadcasts starting on Thursday, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Of course, our friends at Coolbet, Aikens Lake, Breezy Bend, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Consolidated Supply, Nick and Nicky DQ, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Canadian Club Whiskey, Manitoba Battery, and our newest sponsors, Aquatech and Modern Man Barbershops. Let's get Remis in here and get this thing going. Remo, one more point, and we'll be putting the whites on next week. What's going on?
Oh, yeah. Feeling good here, Hustler. This is awesome. You're feeling the playoffs. You can taste it. 1 point in the final two games or a Nashville loss. And it almost didn't seem easy. I mean, the full game, the Jets definitely dominated, but you're giving up a goal 20 seconds in a must-win scenario. Certainly not ideal. Full credit to the Jets for sticking to their game, scoring power play goals, getting contributions throughout the lineup, and finishing off the homestand by giving the reason for the fans to cheer. Great atmosphere throughout, bringing back some great memories of the playoffs. So this is all really exciting, and hopefully we're here this time tomorrow talking about the Jets punching their ticket to the playoffs. They can do that tonight with a point against Minnesota Wild, and it's been tough for the Jets against Minnesota, so definitely not guaranteed. But shout out to Nashville. We were all glued to the Nashville-Calgary game last night. What a roller coaster that was. So exciting. So it was great. I got to say, it was great night last night for watching hockey.
You know, I mean, you mentioned that goal right off the bat, and I mean, the Jets won the draw. They got it deep into the zone. Adam Lowry lays a big hit in the San Jose zone. And then the next thing you know, the San Jose Sharks looked like, I don't know, the 80s Oilers, just tic-tac-toe. Erik Karlsson scores, and you were like, what the hell just happened? And then, of course, saying to everyone around you, this cannot be happening again to the Jets and the San Jose Sharks. To their credit, though, they did not miss a beat. I mean, coming right back out there. They ended up scoring on a power play goal, but a minute later on. Kyle Connor could have probably scored before they even called the penalty, with a beautiful feed from Mark Scheifele. It just got underneath his stick. But the power play clicked last night. And I bring up the opening goal because, of course, it was the Lowry line on the ice for that one. after that shift and after that moment, I'm not sure if Adam Lowry spent any time near Connor Hellebuck. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but that line with he and Nito Niederreiter and Mason Appleton were absolutely dominant. And again, the job isn't done. They still have to make the playoffs, but I could not help but think, watching that line last night, that if the Winnipeg Jets can find themselves in the playoffs, that is the sort of third line that can really make a difference in a Stanley Cup best-of-7 series. And they were absolutely awesome last night. Great goal by Appleton. And he hit that one so hard, Remo, you knew that he was thinking about the one that didn't go in the last time out against the San Jose Sharks when James Reimer was... he was unconscious essentially against the Winnipeg Jets, winning that game for them. And I'm sure Appleton had a tough time sleeping that night. Not the case yesterday as he made the most of it. But a big game for Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, listen, we know San Jose is not very good, but I think considering the stakes, what was at hand, the Winnipeg Jets, like the game against the Nashville Predators on Saturday, put together a workmanlike, intense 60 minutes of hockey last night. We're clearly the better team. And I'll tell you what, if they can play like that, we won't be worrying about what's happening in other venues. We won't be worrying what's happening in Game 82. I think the Winnipeg Jets have the capabilities of getting the point they need tonight against the Minnesota Wild. But again, a very tough opponent, a tough situation, playing on the second end of back-to-backs, although Minnesota played last night as well. Be very interesting to see what happens tonight at the XL Energy Center and whether we can officially start talking about playoff matchups tomorrow on WST.
Yeah, I got all these playoff plans, but you can't really confirm any of them right now, Hustler. So we'll wait and see. And you mentioned Adam Lowry. I mean, that line being on for 3 goals for. They were on for 1 against. But that slapper by Appleton to put that rebound home. Oh, baby. That was, had to watch the replay to see where it went in, but he got everything on that shot. And that really, put the nail in the coffin, but really put away the Sharks and gave Jets even more breathing room. I'm looking at Money Puck. I mean, their top performers for expected goals last day was Adam Lowry, and it was amazing to see the contributions throughout the lineup. 6 different players having 2 points or more. Josh Morrissey leading the team with 3 points, and it was nice to see him in his 500th game have such an impact. And he has this team, Morrissey, actually moving up to 2nd in points for defensemen this year. He played a team high yesterday, just over 23 minutes. We talked about Mark Scheifele, where the goal's been for him, and he scored for his 2nd game in a row, back-to-back. Kyle Connor hitting 80 points for the season. That's 2 seasons in a row with 80. I mean, the Jets, they've played a lot of opponents lately who aren't in playoff spots. However, they're getting wins, and you can't say that for before. And not only are they getting wins, they're looking dominant, scoring 6 goals again. I mean, I make graphics for when they win, just to post on our Instagram. Check out our Instagram, Sports Talk WPG. And I haven't even had to change the Jets' goal number because it's just 6 against Detroit, 6 against New Jersey, 6 here against San Jose yesterday, and Connor Hellebuck being absolutely solid. And there were a couple times where it got frantic there, and he's a rock. So I know I've gone on and on, but I mean, what a performance last night in a game you had to have, and they absolutely brought it and took it to the San Jose Sharks like they had in the past 2 games. But James Reimer, they call it regression to the mean for a reason. You knew he was due to give up a lot of goals. There's no way. I mean, 77 of 79 saves against the Jets coming in. You knew that wasn't going to last, and it didn't last night. And again, fans cheering, fan appreciation. What a great night.
And the fan appreciation night was really fun. I mean, very envious of the 26 fans that got a chance to go down on the ice afterwards and get one of the jerseys off the backs of the Winnipeg Jets. Nothing nicer than a sweet game-worn jersey on fan appreciation night. They did also give some hilarious stuff out. They had a big inflatable pink flamingo. There was like a surfboard at one point, and we were joking like, all right, make some noise. Who wants a surfboard? Well, kind of tough to get in your seat. I believe they gave a voucher for that could be picked up later. But overall, it was a fun night. For the 5th consecutive time in a 5-game homestand, The fans that are out there supporting the Winnipeg Jets brought it right from the get-go and got behind the team despite the goal 20 seconds in. And it was a great way to end the regular season. And obviously the goal was to have that not be our last time in Canada Life Center. And one more point by the Jets or one loss by the Nashville Predators will mean that the Winnipeg Jets will be playing playoff hockey and the Whites will be coming out. The team that the Winnipeg Jets and their fans are worrying about is the Nashville Predators, because you can stick a fork in the Calgary Flames, Remo. They are done. You know, Mike McIntyre, I love the term the loser leaves town match. And we often use that when talking about, you know, in football, when you've got a big divisional game late in the season and, you know, one team's going to stay alive, one team's going to be out. This was the ultimate loser leaves town match when it comes to the National Hockey League, because the Winnipeg Jets were not in a clinching position last night. Regardless of their win, they would not be able to clinch the spot because one of either Calgary or Nashville was getting 2 points. The kicker on this, though, was both teams needed 2 points to stay alive, and even getting to overtime and losing an OT or a shootout as it happened would not be enough for the losers. And there was Daryl Sutter. I was watching the game afterwards like so many people were with some buddies. I audibly gasped when we saw Nick Ritchie go out in the shootout with their season on the line. Didn't work out for Daryl, and the season just simply didn't work out for the Calgary Flames. And it is quite amazing. After the season they had last year, Daryl Sutter getting the Jack Adams, the big moves that they made to try to stay competitive after Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk left the roost, that they're on the outside looking in and making tea times right now. And, I mean, they really only had themselves to blame. I mean, leaving that 1 point on the table last night, and, of course, the game in Calgary, losing to the Chicago Blackhawks before they pulled out 2 points here in Winnipeg, and the Jets only lost to that 5-game homestand, really stands out. But it just feels like that was a team that never really clicked this year, and going to be a very interesting offseason in Southern Alberta, although I don't think it could be possibly as crazy as last year's was, but who knows? I guess we'll see after missing the playoffs.
Yeah, as for Calgary, we talked in the summer, are they going to be better than they were last year? Those are real conversations.
A lot of people thought they were. They would be.
Yeah, Jonathan Huberdeau, he took a step back. I mean, Nazem Kadri, you knew he wasn't going to have the season. He did. You look at Calgary, I mean, the key thing is 17 overtime losses, and how fitting it was that they lost in the shootout last night. They almost came back. You know, we were all Jets fans. Anyone following the Jets certainly had their eye on it. And Nashville got the first goal. They got a 2-1 lead, you know, on a puck that bounced I think off the ref behind the net, and Zach Sanford, former Jet, putting it in. But then it was Michael Backlund right after, you know, tying it up, and overtime solved nothing. We kind of wish you had a longer overtime. I mean, these teams just know how to game overtime, where they just sit back and look for the perfect zone entry. They're passing around in their own end. But it was 5 minutes and went to a shootout. And I mean, UC Saros, absolutely incredible.
Listen, from a Nashville perspective, great strategy.
Yeah,
you can't get scored on when you have the puck.
Yes,
and much like the way I feel when the Winnipeg Jets go to a shootout more often than not. Well, guess what? Winnipeg has Connor Hellebuck. Nashville has UC Saros. There's not too many guys on the other side that you'd feel could be equals of either the Winnipeg or the Nashville starting goalie. So Nashville got what they needed to do done. They got the 2 points. Calgary's out. And, you know, as we talked about this yesterday, I think that's good for Jet fans. And this is just simply a math play. I mean, let's hope that the Jets can take care of business and not have to worry what happens in Nashville's 2 games. That's totally up to them. But if they do need a loss or, you know, even an OT or a shootout loss, at least there's 2 chances for that to happen with Nashville, as opposed to Calgary, who would have just had the one home game against the San Jose Sharks. And I think we saw the San Jose Sharks last night are eminently beatable team. Although they do have a defenseman putting together one of the greatest offensive seasons historically, well, certainly in 30 years, 100 points with his 2 goals last night. And Erik Karlsson certainly was a star. He sort of stood out. He does a lot of great things in the offensive zone. Defensive zone, maybe not as much. I'm sure there'll be some very interesting discussions when it comes to the Norris Trophy this year. But, man, he's a special player, and he looks back to the offensive dynamo that he was when he was traded to the San Jose Sharks after that incredible run with the Ottawa Senators.
And Erik Karlsson, I got him in my fantasy auction for $3 at the end. And I mean, it's like one of the defense, yeah, sure, I'll take Erik Karlsson. Maybe he bounces back. They don't have Brent Burns there, so he's going to get all the time on ice. Power play 1, because they were splitting power play 1 and power play 2. And man, I thought he'd have what did he have last year? 50 points. Last year, sorry, he had 35 points in 50 games. And so this year to play, 80 so far and then have 100 for him, absolutely incredible. I don't know if he's Norris Trophy just because, there are a lot of comments about his defensive ability, but to do something that only 5 other defensemen have done, 6 total, 100 points, and hasn't been done since mid-90s. I'm loving seeing all these guys scoring 100 points. We did have a couple other 1,000-point milestones last night with Joe Pavelski and Claude Giroux. Congratulations to those guys. Seeing 100 points become normal, not having Jamie Benn get the Art Ross with his point totals in the 80s.
72 or whatever it was, 80-something.
This is awesome. So scoring is back. The goalies are still great. So, 87 points he scored the Art Ross with. And how many guys have 103? Tonight it's Colorado-Edmonton. 5 guys with 100 points in the same game, which is awesome. You haven't seen that since the 90s.
Yeah, well, and speaking of milestones, so we got to give the tip of the cap to, Mark Scheifele, first of all. Goal number 41, a career high, continues to add to that. Assist number is not there. Won't be a point-a-game player this year, but certainly has lit the lamp. And Josh Morrissey, Reem, we've talked about Morrissey all year long, certainly in the Norris conversation as well. 75 points on the season, an absolute rocket last night to the top corner that no goalie is stopping in the National Hockey League. 4th most ever by a Winnipeg NHL defenseman, and 3 points on the night. Once again, the real leaders of this team, Adam Lowry, Josh Morrissey, stepping up last night with the season on the line.
Yeah, I mentioned Erik Karlsson, getting him at the end of a fantasy draft. I think if you got with Josh Morrissey too, you're probably rewarded very, very well. And I mean, smashing his career highs, smashing Jets franchise records. Phil Housley had 97 and 92, 93, 86 and 91, 92. He can get third for a Winnipeg NHL defenseman. Housley had 76 and 90. 91, Morrissey with 75. So, milestone 500 game, 3 points yesterday. Just had a fantastic year. And I agree with you, as the leaders last night, Lowry and Morrissey, Scheifele as well, who was in A scoring near the end there. So just an all around great performance and giving you good feelings here heading into the postseason.
Yeah.
Heading into a postseason clinching scenario tonight.
Clinching opportunity. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Tell you what, and again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know that I'm somewhat superstitious and would not want to have that hanging on me, for instance, like others that put an X beside this team right before they had a real tough couple of weeks. And, that's the reason why these games are still meaningful as they hit the road after finishing up their home portion of the schedule. But, with the way the Jets played at the start of the year, knowing that they can do it and seeing the success that they can have, having that horrible run for the better part of 2 months that it really cost them everything that they'd earned in the first bit of the season, and now having to really grind out and play playoff-type hockey at the end of the season. I mean, they're going to be big underdogs, probably, whoever they played. But I don't think that the struggle that they've had to find their game, to get back and do the things that they've done, albeit against teams that aren't going to the playoffs, won't help them in some ways if they're able to book that ticket to the Stanley Cup playoffs, which could happen tonight. Let's hear a little bit of Rick Bowness before Jamie Thomas joins us, Remo. Bones, of course, quite pleased last night with the way that his team came out despite the goal early on, an immediate response, and a full 60-minute effort. Here's Bowness on his team's big win last night at home.
Rick, there's been a sense these last couple of games that with early adversity, whatever happens, you guys won't be denied. Where does that come from? How does it feel?
I feel good. Again, we've been preaching a lot to stay in the moment. I mean, we had one player make a mistake and they got an early goal, but we came right back with the power play goal, so there was no panic. No, that's what we've been preaching for a while. Just stay in the moment. You're not going to win every shift. Things aren't always going to go your way. Next shift up, get us going the other way again.
Yeah, I was down in the lower bowl facing the benches last night. Now, I made a point of looking over at Bowness and the bench after that because that was obviously a really tough way to start a game against a team that you had not had any success against, despite being so much further behind you in the standings. And there was no, Paul Maurice rang out. It was, I think, calm, collected, through Dubois, Connor, and Scheifele out. And Dubois, I thought, really led the way. I mean, he was an absolute pain in the butt last night. I mean, in front of the net, making plays. And that line, and I know it's crazy thinking about this with the Scheifele and everything that's happened to him and having him moved over to the wing. When those guys are clicking right now, I mean, that is a very, very dangerous line. And you can just hope that they're getting hot at the most important time of the year. Bones certainly talked about that top line. We mentioned Adam Lowry and his line, how good they were. The fourth line was phenomenal, spending a majority of their time in the other end. And obviously the Nikolai Ehlers line contributed as well. Here's Bones on getting contributions from everyone last night.
No, it was six different goal scorers. Helly was good when we need him to be. The power play the last three games has looked really good. We haven't scored in those last three games. It's looked a lot better than it had earlier. So it was nice to see the power play get a couple tonight. It was unfortunate we gave up that penalty kill goal, but penalty kill's been good all year. So, but we need that balance. You're going to win. Especially in the playoffs, you need that balance. You need your bottom half to contribute. Lau's line, even though they gave up that first goal, they came back with a great effort after that. So, it was good to see six different guys score. We need that.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many times have we heard Rick Bowness say, we had the chances, but we just couldn't put one in? That hasn't been the case as of late, and this team absolutely needed that. And couldn't be a more important time to get your big guys going and get everyone contributing. Bowness talked about if he feels like the Winnipeg Jets are peaking at the right time.
Well, there's only 2 games left. We need a point. So peaking, not peaking, all we got to do is focus on that game tomorrow night. We know the importance of that game. We know the importance of the next game. So right now we're feeling good about ourselves. Again, it goes back to the balanced scoring that we're going to get. The D scored again tonight, which is huge for our team. So, but again, tomorrow night's going to be a different animal than playing the San Jose tonight. They're going to be a lot tougher opponent than the San Jose tonight.
So you don't want to say that team that was up in the Western Conference is back. You don't want to say that just yet.
No, listen, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is going and giving our best effort tomorrow night. That's what matters. That really, all the rest, this 4 game, we won 4-5 and all, that's all great. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how we play tomorrow night.
Well, and, to Bones' point, I would say that they've got a bit of a score to settle with the Minnesota Wild. I mean, a score that can really only be settled in a best-of-7 series in the playoffs. Not sure whether that's going to happen. But they've gotten rolled pretty good by the Wild so far this season. And the fact that they could not only get over a hump and beat a divisional rival that I don't believe they've beaten this year, and get the points that they need to officially punch their ticket to the playoffs, huge opportunity for the Jets to build off this 5-game homestand.
Before we go into the next clip, the Jets' record against Minnesota this year, and I know people are feeling confident with the way the Jets have played, but 0-3, goals for, 4 goals. Goals against, 14 goals. So, hasn't looked good, and I am seeing people in chat wondering, Kirill Kaprizov just returned. This is their first meeting since Logan Stanley gave him the bonsai drop. Do you think will there be a score to be settled? I don't know. And who for Minnesota? Joel, we'll hear more.
Where are they going to find him?
Yeah.
Are they going to come out of one of the booths in the press box and jump the guy? I mean, unfortunately for the Wild, if they were hoping on big time retribution, they're either going to need to wait by the team bus, or find him somewhere in the arena, because Dylan Sandberg is in that spot. He's not going anywhere. He had another really strong game last night, as did most of his teammates. You know what? We will have a little bit more Bones coming up, and Josh Morrissey as well. Are expecting Jamie Thomas to jump in, but just before we do that, I got to thank our friends at Modern Man Barbershops. Now on board with WST, and now with 8 locations in Winnipeg, including their newest locations on Pembina Highway by the University, just by Bishop Grandin, or over on Plessis Road. Modern Man Barbershops offer a great variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, colors, services, and more. Book your look via modernmanbarber.com and give them a follow on IG at Modern Man Barbershops. And hey, if you are a barber looking for work, they continue to grow. They're looking for people with the skills to make it happen. Send a resume into info@aurahairgroup.com. I will tell you, right here in Toronto, it's 21 or 22 right now. People are out in shorts. That is happening to us in Winnipeg coming very soon. Looks like it's going to be a great week with all the melting happening. Let's start thinking about summer. Why not make 2023 the year you take the plunge? Visit aqua-tech.ca to design your own custom pool. Aquatech's team can provide on-the-spot front pricing from designers, as well as financing options that suit you. WST brought to you in part by Aquatech, as well as the home renovation starting with Aquatech. Thousands of rentals is their foundation. Let them upgrade any space in your home. If you're looking to finance, their team can provide plans that suit you as well. Schedule a design visit today. Visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are ready to move on to the fun part of this season, not just worrying about frozen cars and trucks and batteries for that, although, of course, they are your number one source for that. You're working on that summer toy, a boat, maybe a ski-doo, a golf cart, and more. Well, Manitoba Battery is the most convenient and well-priced option in the city. No matter what battery you need, order one at lunchtime around the start of WST and have it sitting on your doorstep in 2 to 4 hours for less money than you'd spend anywhere else in Winnipeg on the same battery. No more wasting your money at big box stores, folks. Shop local at Manitoba Battery. Bring the battery to you at the best prices in town. You can give them a call at 783-8787. Order online at manitobabattery.com. or give them a visit at 1026 Logan Avenue. And got to give a big shout out to our friends over at Canadian Club. I know there was probably a few CC's cheers to the final win of the season at home in the regular season, and here's hoping we'll be able to do it again coming into the playoffs. One thing I know we'll be able to do is enjoy CC and ginger ales at IG Field, as Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You can also get the 473 milliliter cans at your local Manitoba liquor marts and beer vendors. Pick up Canadian Club today, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. All right, big one tonight. Could it be clinching time? Well, it certainly could. Will it? We're not sure. That's why they play the games, and the puck drops at 7. But let's go to the Twin Cities now and welcome in Jamie Thomas from 680 CJOB Jets Radio and the Jets. What a way to finish off the home schedule and the homestand, Jamie, with 2 points that the team absolutely had to have. A little bit of revenge on a team that had been a bit of a nuisance for Winnipeg. And now 1 more point is all this hockey team needs. How are you?
Good. First off, I'd like to compliment you on your lighting in your hotel room. It looks exactly the same as mine, but you have a much better painting behind you.
I got to give Remis credit. Remis, we pulled in a new light for these roadies, and it's super bright outside right now, so I had to pull the curtain. But we did our best. I mean, it takes a lot to make this look good, and I'm not sure we're even close to doing that, Jamie. But you get up in the morning looking at like $1 million US tax-free, so you don't have those worries.
I borrowed Kevin Sawyer's pomade today, so my hair is looking. Thank you to Kevin Sawyer for that. So, to your question about last night, I think Rick Bowness had said if the Jets played the way they did against San Jose, the way they had on home ice when they lost in overtime 3-2, that he would take that game all day long. And, lo and behold, they play that way and finally get some pucks past James Reimer. And it's amazing how 2 games can change your whole attitude about a team. Like, everyone's talking about how terrible San Jose is and, oh, that's an awful team. Like, well, I don't know. I've seen these guys, hurt you in the 2 games against against the Sharks this year for the Jets. And I spoke with Morgan Barron, and I said, what was the two things you learned about San Jose? And he goes, well, they're an opportunistic team, and clearly their goaltending has been huge against us. But whenever you gave them an opportunity, they would score. And lo and behold, they gave the Erik Karlsson an opportunity in the opening 20 seconds of the hockey game, and he puts the puck in the net. But the response afterwards was so critical, and we hadn't seen that and then when things were going tough. They give up that early goal, but the next shift and the line goes out there, draws a penalty, the Jets score in the power play, and I think the game was pretty much over at that point. So lots of things to like about that, Huss, but I think there was that determination. They played with some desperation, some urgency, and you saw that right from the drop of the puck in the beginning part of the homestand, starting against Detroit. Sure, they had a drop off a little bit against Calgary, but the Flames played a role in that as well. But overall, to take 4 or 5 in that homestand and to get the fans back involved, and I know the fans had a part in this, and to hear the "Go Jets, Go" chants before and after the anthem, man, it just felt like playoff time. And I think the fans have sensed the urgency and the need for them to raise their game and their passion levels a little bit more. And man, did they ever deliver? And I think the Jets fed off that through the 5 games.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And hey, listen, there's been some real ups and downs, and we've lost a few fans that were maybe regulars before that haven't been there. But I can't say enough about the people that have still been behind this team through a couple pretty miserable months that came out at the beginning of this road trip trying to will this team back to the team that did all those great things for the first few months of the season. And listen, the fan appreciation things that the organization did for the fans were really fun last night. There's some great giveaways. Very, very lucky fans getting those jerseys off the back of those players at the end. And I mean, just a great mood of the way that their home regular season ended. But the point of all this is to not have that the final time the Winnipeg Jets played at home this year. Yeah. That being said, I mean, there still is some work to be done. It would be nice to be able to give the Big Save Dave a couple games. But the job is not complete. But it would have been a much, much more uphill battle if they weren't able to slay the Sharks, considering the troubles that they've given him. And Jamie, it did not start off very well. I thought the first half of that shift was great. You get it deep. Adam Lowry lays a big hit. But Erik Karlsson showed a little bit of what, the reason why he's a 100-point defenseman and the favorite for the Norris Trophy. But as I said, I went back to Rick Bowness and the way he handled it and the way you looked at his team. And I think the way they played against the Nashville Predators for the full 60 minutes for the most part gave them the confidence that hiccup was not going to harm them too much. And to Adam Lowry's credit and his line, from that moment on, they absolutely dominated every single shift they were out on the ice for. I thought they were just incredible, despite giving up one in the first 20 seconds.
Yeah, they drove the bus in the game against Nashville, flat out. Right, that's a game that's a heavy game. It's hard to get in front of the net. It's not fun to play against Nashville, even though they're missing a lot of their star players. They've traded away a lot of their star players, but you have to take away UC Saros' eyes. You got to give him a hard time in front. There's got to be a lot of battles. And the Jets won a lot of puck battles against Nashville, and that carried over against San Jose. So if you play that way that you did against Nashville, San Jose doesn't even belong in the same building as you, flat out. Like their only thing that they're really doing right now is trying to get Erik Karlsson to 100 points. They've taken care of that. That's really, talking to Randy Hahn, the play-by-play voice on television for the Sharks. He said that's the only thing they've been kind of focusing on, and the future in San Jose. So you give up that first goal and then just keep driving things. You're gonna run San Jose out of the building, and they almost ran them out of the building the first time they were in town. Outside of from what James Reimer, but there's an air of confidence in this team right now that's pretty hard to describe unless you talk to the players, as we have recently. Dylan DeMello said there's a lot of confidence in the group before the homestand started. Morgan Barron even said about a month ago he still believes in this group. So you can see why when they play the way they had in that homestand, that's what they've been trying to tell us all along. And we've been, I'm sure you've been defending the Jets. They played well enough to win a lot of times. You've repeated it probably a million times. I've said it 1,000 times. You want to punch yourself in the face because you've been saying it so many times. There's no results to show for it. And you feel like you're kind of misleading people, but you're not. They were playing well. And now they're being rewarded and the puck's going in, and you see that confidence and the belief in themselves. So they're in a good place, buddy. Like I just think You feel good about this opportunity tonight. I don't think they're going to go in there and go, okay, let's just get 1 point. You want to take the whole stinking thing, right?
Well, they want to beat this team. I mean, this is not this is a division rival that has had their way with the Winnipeg Jets this year. And I was just saying to Remis before you came on, I can't think of a better way to clinch a playoff spot than to go in on the road against a team that you haven't beat yet this year, that who knows, if things go well, you might see later on at some point in the postseason, and take 2 in their building and announce with an exclamation mark that this hockey team is going to be a force to be reckoned with once they drop the puck on game 83.
And like Minnesota last night, you go to Chicago, and the schedule makers are helping the Jets out. Like you're playing your second game as many nights, you have to travel. But Minnesota was in Chicago last night, so if I'm guessing right, I believe they would have got in later than the Jets to St. Paul. But for whatever reason, man, Minnesota sits Dumba, Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Spurgeon, and Brodin against the Hawks. Now, is that to save them for this game? So it's not like Minnesota is going, okay, we're in the playoffs. Minnesota is trying to get home ice as well. So they understand the challenges in front of them. I thought the only game the Jets deserved to win against Minnesota this year was the game where Marc-Andre Fleury looked like Marc-Andre Fleury from 2018. The Jets simply dominated in that game and didn't come out of it. So I'm with you. This is the right way to do it. Forget Thursday. Forget trying to leave it to the last day of the regular season for them to get that point. Do this tonight. Get it out of the way. You've got a day off tomorrow in Denver. Why not have that X beside your name and have a day off instead of going, oh, we got a day off here, and then play the Avalanche on Thursday, who are also trying to get first place in the Central Division. So take care of business tonight. And I from listening to the players last night, talking to Rick Bowness this morning, that has to be the focus, like flat out. You understand the opportunity that's in front of them. You've taken advantage of your opportunities on the 5-game homestand. Now carry it over, get this done tonight, and we can all breathe and sleep a little easier. And I only say that because, we cover the team. I'm sure they'll sleep a lot better than I will tonight if they get this done. Yeah, no,
listen, the fans are right there with you, Jamie. I mean, there's no doubt. Yeah. It would have been nice to have these last 2 games really not be meaning anything. And listen, I think it would be very nice to be able to get Riddick a start in that final game of the season. Although, as I said to Remis before, and I know this is not the way things work now in the National Hockey League, and there's a lot of science involved in it, he is just so damn good when he plays over and over and over again. I said to him before, I'd love to see just at one point Connor Hellebuyck be given the keys and given like the Arturs Urbe season playing for Maurice, where he has played in 79 of the 82 games. I honestly think they can handle it. But joking aside, a day off would be nice, assuming that they're going to be needing him come playoff time. Jamie, I have to ask you this. When did you guys get in the air after the game? Like when you were wheels up, did you know what had happened in that Nashville-Calgary game? I kind of thought of this scenario as the plane got down and everyone's turning on their phones and finding out what happened in the other game that had a lot of impact with Winnipeg.
I'm thinking that the result wasn't there. I think it was about 10-15 when we took off from Winnipeg too. So yeah, when you land, you find out that Calgary had lost in a shootout. And, to me, if Calgary would have got in, they would have been a problem for a lot of people. And because the way they play the game, they play that heavy style, playoff style all the time. But I think, it's wild how that happens. The players, you got one team out of the way, now all you have, because that's the best result for the Jets flat out. Calgary loses, they're done. They can't catch you at all. Now Nashville needs to win both their games, and the Jets get nothing in their final 2 games. So it's the far better scenario. So you can understand why the Jets players and coaching staff are much more relaxed knowing that Calgary's out of the picture. That's one more team not to worry about. Now you just have to take care of your own business in that 1 point, or hopefully 2 tonight against Minnesota.
Back to last night's game, and I mean, we've talked a lot about the top line, now with Scheifele on the wing and what they've been able to do, and the Adam Lowry line. I got to give a shout out to my guy, Stenny, Morgan Barron, and Saku Menelainen. Over the course of this, really since Menelainen came back in the Calgary game, and I thought, he certainly made his presence felt in that game despite it not going their way. But the last 2 games has had some of the best fourth-line shifts of this entire season. And that is another thing that I think is maybe doesn't get enough attention, But man, can that be important once you're playing for keeps when you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, first off, with Kevin Stenlund, your guy, there's kind of the push from the outside when Stenlund wasn't producing offensively to get him out of the lineup and maybe bring David Gustafsson. You can't do that because Stenlund's your best faceoff guy, flat out, and he's a great penalty killer. And with Saku Menelainen, Bones brings him back into the Calgary game because they needed a heavier presence, good penalty killer, and he had one bad turnover that led to the goal that was called back for the Flames. And then from that point on, he's been fantastic. But the fourth line and third line look very similar to me when they're out on the ice. They ham the other team in the other end in the offensive zone. The Jets' ozone time has been off the charts the last two games against Nashville and San Jose. But they've been a big part of that. And this game against Minnesota is where the third and fourth line, yes, you need your top lines, but now you don't have last change. You know that Minnesota's going to send their best defenseman, their best checking line up against the Dubois line. So that almost seems like they're going to be canceled out in some ways. You need your third and fourth lines to continue playing the way they are. And this game is just like the Nashville game, just like the Calgary game. These games are perfect for the Stenlund and Lowry lines to take over and play that critical role, chipping in some secondary offense, and of course provide great defense as well. So these are the games that these two lines are born and bred for Lowry and Stenlund to help out and offensively and defensively here tonight against Minnesota.
And you know what? I mean, obviously Erik Karlsson got his 100 yesterday, and it was sort of funny to see the big celebration on the ice with the team and how happy they were. But I mean, you kind of nailed it. That was the one thing left for them to sort of play for. And I mean, they got it. But just from a fan's perspective, even if you had no skin in the game, I mean, you saw Karlsson, perfect examples of why he's had this historic season. But I thought Josh Morrissey showed that he is back to, or at least last night in the last couple of games, he has looked like the guy that, was right there in the mix for the Norris Trophy through the first half plus of the season. And that goal last night, I mean, the smile on his face when he turned around back to the crowd and doubled back 3 points in the season, spoke after the game. I think he's really feeling it right now. And listen, I mean, Rick Bowness talked about contributions from so many different players, and that's absolutely important. You also have to have your best guys going. And I would suggest Josh Morrissey over the last couple of games, the most important time of the season, has looked as good as he has at any time this year. And that's a high compliment.
Right. And he got up to that, well, I don't want to say great start, but the opposition has been taking away Josh Morrissey on the power play flat out. They rush out to him. He has no time or space to get a shot off. So he's always deferring off to Nikolai Ehlers on one side or Kyle Connor on the other side or Mark Scheifele. But when he does have that chance, that time and space to do so, he has the shot that we saw last night. And absolutely no disrespect to Erik Karlsson at all. He's only the sixth player to get 100 points as a defenseman in the National Hockey League. First Swedish-born player, first guy since 91-92 defenseman to get to 100 points. But he is the focus. That's all San Jose has been doing, is trying to get him to 100 points. Like that forget defense. What is getting lost in all this, and Paul Edmonds brought it up to his commentary on CJOB, is just like there's got to be a different award. There's two awards for defense, top offensive defenseman and the best defenseman all around. Josh Morrissey plays the tough minutes. He is out on the power play. He goes up against the other team's best forwards. Plays a lot of minutes, whereas Erik Karlsson is more of an offensive defenseman, flat out. And you saw how special he is, and we've seen in the 3 games this year. But Josh Morrissey took the team on his back against St. Louis when they needed a win. Was fantastic last night. Did fantastic against the Nashville Predators. He's elevating his game at the most important time of year to get his team in the playoffs, where Erik Karlsson has not been able to do that, or obviously, as the team is transitioning and turning into, looking towards Connor Bedard possibly, that's not their focus. Josh Morrissey, important minutes, heavy minutes, and he's been fantastic. And it was great to see him score last night, because other teams have been taking that opportunities away from him, but he wouldn't be denied last night.
Yeah, speaking of Connor Bedard, the Pats did lose to the Blades last night, and that would have been neat to see Bedard come to Winnipeg and take on the ice. But just glad we're focusing on NHL playoffs and hopefully a nice run of the Winnipeg Jets, not having to worry about a guy that's going first overall in the draft coming to Winnipeg for a few but certainly will be pulling for the ice as well to make a great run in the Western Hockey League playoffs. What was I imagine the team was pretty excited about the way that they played, feeling good, but as we've mentioned, it ain't over yet. How would you characterize the feeling around the club post-game, the vibe of the team getting on that plane and getting to Minneapolis, knowing that they're just about there, but they're not there yet?
Yeah, I think that, even this morning there's some relaxed in some ways, right? Just because of calories out, as I mentioned, but just knowing they're feeling good, knowing that they're in all that hard work and staying with their game through a very tough time while everybody's leaning on them from the outside, fans, media. They stayed within themselves and within the system that Rick Bowness has been laying down to them and saying, keep playing like this. It's going to come. It's going to come. I think that's the perfect place to be. We would all love to be sitting here today saying, okay, this last 2 games, nobody get hurt, get to the playoffs. Well, that's just not the opportunity that's been presented to them. But the way they're playing with the confidence, the enthusiasm, they're enjoying playing the game right now. That to me is more important. And to get on a roll the way they have at this time of year is critical. And I think they feel very good about where they are. They feel very good about the style of game that they're playing. We'll be successful against Minnesota. And we should be in for a real treat here tonight in St. Paul.
Yeah, I can't wait for this one. I mean, we'll see what the Jets have left over from that game last night. As you mentioned, Minnesota played as well, although maybe telegraphing that they were coming for the Jets tonight. Because frankly, if I'm the Minnesota Wild or any of the other teams in the Central, wouldn't mind doing my part to get those guys out because they are a dangerous team when they're playing the way they have been as of late. Jamie, travel safe. Enjoy this one tonight, and hopefully you and Paul can do a fist bump after the game and start planning to get your best white suits out for Canada Life Center in a couple of weeks. But we'll see what happens tonight, and obviously appreciate you jumping on with us, and hope to hear you and Paul do some more great stuff from the home rink a little later on this season.
Appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you soon.
You got it. Thanks so much. There's Jamie Thomas, 680 CJOB Jets Radio and part of the Jets TV group as well. We're going to go from one incredibly handsome individual to another one, Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press, coming up right now. I'd imagine both Jeff and Jamie, big-time Vita Health Fresh Market guys. I mean, they just ooze natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, although they are quite natural as well. They've also loved Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products, too. Vita Health Fresh Market is an incredible spot for all of those things. And with spring just around the corner, we've got the ultimate male energy right now, as well as the healthy fats, if you will, the omega-3 fatty acids, all on sale right now at Vita Health Fresh Market. If you can't make it down to one of the 7 Vita Health stores, visit their website to buy online. Local delivery is now available. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. Well, with spring here, folks, Wallace & Wallace is ready to get to work for you. They're Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialists. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call. They got vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood. Whatever you need, Wallace & Wallace, the fencing experts in town, are ready for you. And if you need to replace your garage door, you might not know that Wallace & Wallace has Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors as well. Hit them up, 452-2700. The Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off of Kenniston. How's the menswear game? What's the closet looking like heading into spring, fellas? Well, if you need an upgrade, one place and one place only you need to go, and that's F Apparel down at 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you're in a wedding party, they got a 15% discount for wedding parties when you get your suits together at F Apparel. If you've got a high school grad in the family, get the young man a new suit to transition into the next chapter of his life, and F Apparel will hook the young man up with a free custom shirt and tie value of about $100. F Apparel is at 190 Smith Street downtown. You can also make an appointment at EPHapparel.com. Saw our pal DQ Nick at the game last night. He was having a good time, as everyone else was, and got a lot going on right now. Blizzard season, the good kind, is here. Pop down with the family and get the most delicious ice cream treats around at one of 4 Nick and Nicky DQs, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's, and the DQ in Niverville. And some exciting things about rumors of a pita pit being added to the Nick and Nicky family. We'll tell you about that coming up as well. All right, let's get back to the Twin Cities and back to the Jets with our pal Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, what's going on? What's it like down in Minneapolis right now?
It's I hate to even say it, man. It's gorgeous here.
Beautiful.
I think you mentioned it was 22 or something where you are. It's 24 currently in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's absolutely gorgeous. But as you mentioned off the top, or the weather's supposed to get nicer in Winnipeg, so hopefully I return home for that. I had to move my computer because I was getting the sexy vibes like you're currently occupying right now. I'm glad that Remo told me that you were in Toronto, because I thought they hold you up in a room at the Mariage you were spending the week at. But we'll here we are. So let's talk Jets.
Not Mariage,
sexiest topic of all.
Marriott, but not far off. I'm
Same.
actually looking forward to very shortly over at the Princess Auto Players Championship. We're going to have a battle of 2 Manitoba teams, Matty Dunstone and Reed Carruthers going at it. So looking forward to that. But of course, the main focus for Winnipeggers is this hockey game tonight against the Minnesota Wild. And listen, Jeff, I mean, I think the opportunity was there for this team to not have to win this game tonight, to maybe be able to rest some players, certainly Connor Hellebuck. It hasn't gone that way. But if you consider the home loss to Calgary being the one blemish on this homestand, to be in the position they're in right now with Calgary already making tee times and Nashville hanging by a thread with 1 point, I think you can look back at this homestand and say this team got most of what they needed to get done, but there's one more step to go. And I'm sure, as I said to Jamie, they would love nothing more than to get their first win of the season against the Wild tonight and book their ticket to the playoffs with a win at the same time.
Yeah, that's
Cameron,
obviously the plan here. I think the plan was to make the playoffs all season long. And look, I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. You just had cut out there for a
Jeff's-
second.
Or what?
Yeah, your internet just cut out into the red here. It was good before. He was telling me he was having some issues before the show.
Oh,
it was in the
interesting.
green. Now he's in the red. Now he's out. So
As you can see, folks, the red is bad. The green is good.
Yeah, green.
They're
yeah,
very similar
How
to
are we doing
the
now?
traffic go. Okay, I think you're back. You look good. We're hearing you again. Maybe just get back to what I was asking, because we didn't hear much of it at all. Just the opportunity to finally punch this ticket to the playoffs and do it against a team that has really had their way with the Winnipeg Jets earlier this year.
Well, and I think I'm going to steal something you said, with Jamie, that this is a major opportunity to just put in some good momentum in place here. Like I get that there's a 4-1, homestand, which was obviously critical for them to put themselves in this position where they, let's face it, they're squeaking into the playoffs. There's no other way behind it. I mean, they need 1 point in the last 2 games. I don't think anybody would have envisioned that being the course earlier in January when this team was fighting for top spot. But here they are. So, obviously, certainly a kudos for the Jets for getting things done. I mean, they did lose against a critical game against Calgary, which Calgary, like they've been doing pretty much all the second half here, giving the Jets favors by not playing all that great. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Down here by any stretch, but I mean, the Nashville Predators are not the Nashville Predators even of this season, right? I mean, the talent they were losing, it was as if the Jets didn't play with their top 6 and their best 2 D-men. So, I mean,
although let me just say one thing on that. And I mean, I agree with you. I mean, on paper, for sure.
How can you not?
That was not a team. They still went in and beat the Boston Bruins. They beat the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, they're here because they won a whole bunch of games that people weren't expecting. And strange things happen with teams. If we look back at the Winnipeg Jets, the best run they maybe had all season long was playing through that month of December into early January. before all their top players came back, and then they ended up going in a 2-month funk. So, I mean, I totally
And
get
I'm
what
not
you're saying.
debating on you on how good Nashville is this year, but I will, and San Jose, same kind of story, right? I mean, they're not a good team. I mean, their 2 goals were scored by their defensemen, right? I mean, Erik Karlsson's having a terrific year. I wasn't trying to debate any, good feelings from the Jets right now.
Yeah.
I'm just setting up tonight's game. Tonight's game is the difference. Tonight's game, because we've seen this team, right? We've seen them feel good about themselves. We've seen them play well enough to, be a top end team in this league. We've also seen them, dump on themselves, and it feels like that high and low is it can happen overnight. And what I'm suggesting here is the Jets need to go in with the attitude tonight, and I'm sure they will, that this is their game 1 of their playoffs. I mean, you have to go in with that mentality tonight, because you need to, as you mentioned, it's only 1 game, but you want to get Dave Riddick into a game. You want to rest guys. The Jets have been playing playoff hockey for 6 weeks, right? That's an exhausting, that's an exhausting practice. I mean, you mentioned Carolina, you mentioned Boston. Boston wrapped up the President's Trophy. They don't have nothing to play for. I mean, look at Minnesota Wild last night. I mean, it took Foligno being the human gladiator to rev his team up in the 3rd period off that fight. They sat a bunch of guys because they're getting ready for tonight's game. Yeah. Tonight's game is what matters to them. They felt like they could ice an AHL team to beat another AHL-looking team in the Chicago Blackhawks and bring it back home and bring the big dogs to play. So if the Jets are feeling at all good about this 4-1 homestand, they shouldn't be. That should be. I mean, you got to feel good in the moment. You got to realize you've done your job. All those things are important. This is the game that matters. Your playoff lives are on the line here. You're against a team that you're a very similar team in caliber to what you're going to meet in the playoffs against another team who needs this game. They're fighting for position in the Central too. So, if anything, I felt like, you have the, I'm not going to go back to the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. We heard a lot about teams playing freely, teams playing, down in the standings. Obviously, Nashville is not one of those teams, but they are made of a bunch of guys who are trying to fight for jobs next year and prove that they belong. They've just been able to do seemingly the impossible. This is where the playoff intensity comes to play. These next
Minnesota's
2 games,
playing for keeps.
Minnesota's playing for keeps tonight. They've dominated the Jets this year. They don't like the Jets. I'm really excited for tonight's game. I think tonight's game is going to be one of those where you're going to see emotion immediately. Like, the Jets don't want to get into it. They're going to be forced to get into it immediately. And I think as long as they don't fall into some of those traps that the Calgary Flames got them into, right? Because the Jets don't need to be in the penalty box. They need to be a hard forward-checking physical team, play clean, play within the whistles, stick up for your teammates, obviously. But that's where I'm looking for the Jets tonight, is to play that team game, to come in with a mentality, a workman-like mentality, and carve out at least 1 point. Get that point, seal the deal, get in, take a long exhale, and then it really starts, right? I mean, that's the crazy thing about these games is, I feel the narrative after the win over San Jose and the loss, obviously, by Calgary last night, suddenly turns out the Jets are, hopefully they're not feeling that way, right? We've seen it in the past where the Jets have felt good about themselves, come out and laid an egg. They need to look at this homestand, be happy that they went 4-1, put it behind them, and come out and pretend like this is game 1 of the first round of the playoffs, because that's the atmosphere it's going to have. That's the feel it's going to have, and that's the intensity and level of play that you need to bring to a game if you want to beat the Minnesota Wild, who, like we've been talking about, have planned for your arrival and want to destroy you.
Speaking of the Jets' arrival, and I'll ask this with Jessi when she joins us a little later on, but I imagine there'll probably be some very disappointed fans and maybe some disappointed members of the Minnesota Wild if Logan Stanley remains in the press box for this game, considering as Michael Remis described it, the banzai drop on Kirill Kaprizov that cost him 3 or 4 weeks in the last time these 2 teams met in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough to get Logan Stanley in the game. We'll see. I mean, it is back to back. I'm not sure what they'll do with that. But I mean, who do you take out? I mean, I guess you could take out Nate Schmidt if you don't want Nate Schmidt there. I mean, who? Well,
no, I believe me, I'm not suggesting for a second that the Jets would do it. I just mean that there's a lot of people that had this game circled on as a big revenge game, wanting to get Logan Stanley.
As a wrap up this season, Jungle Fest, maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean,
he's on wanted posters.
you got to think that's going to be in the back of their mind. Obviously, if Logan Stanley doesn't dress, and I don't think he probably will, it's going to be a nothing burger. I mean, I think Minnesota Wild have far too much to play for, to concern themselves about than revenge at this point. I mean, it's one of those things too that, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think if the way things were trending towards that game, it felt like this one would have a whole new vibe. This one has a real playoff vibe, and I don't know. Like I mentioned, the Jets have been playing kind of playoff hockey for a while here. Now it's to try to find the playoff style, and I think what the good thing about what we've seen over the last 5 games is more consistency and commitment to that plan. Because, like I said, I might have dismissed a little bit those victories over San Jose and Nashville, but the reality is the Jets are a better team on paper, and they played that way. I mean, they knew that if they could put together their, you're never going to put a 60-minute effort together, but as close to that as possible and stuck to the game plan, hard forechecking, driving the net, just dictating play for the most part, speed through the neutral zone, all those things we're seeing over this 5-game stretch, even in the game to Calgary. I mean, Calgary, again, did a great job of plugging up the middle, taking away that transition game from the Jets, but that was by design. I mean, that was ultimately their game plan. But the Jets persevered, so there's tons of credit to that. Now it's having that willingness to commit to that against teams like this, like the Minnesota Wild, like Colorado after, because it's looking at, when you look at the top of the Central Division standings, it's looking like Thursday's game could also very much be meaningful for the Colorado Avalanche. So this is the Jets' truest test. I got a good feeling. I think they're going to get at least 1 point out of these 2 games, because I think they're feeling not only good about their game, but they're feeling that good pressure too. And I think you talked about it with Jamie too. I mean, guys have kind of, in conversations with guys, I mean, they are coming from that embracing this challenge and enjoying themselves. A lot of guys have pointed to last season. I was talking to Neil Pionk before I hopped on a plane yesterday afternoon. I mean, him talking about last year, he's like, I went to my calendar last year. Like, he physically went to his calendar last year and looked at what, to kind of get in this mind frame of where he was in spring 2022. And he had circled on his calendar the day he was driving home. Now they're battling for a playoff spot. And to me, that speaks to perspective. And we've talked a lot about this in the past, about this team maybe lacking that perspective, the opportunity they have, seizing the moment, all the cliche, carpe diem, all the cliches you could want to toss out there. This team is actually feeding off of. And that's a great sign. And I think but that's the scary part with this team for me, because as quickly as they can transition into their game, they can just as quickly, if not quicker, transition out of their game. And that's why I think these 2 games, regardless of results, even though results are incredibly important, how are the Jets going to handle the highs and lows of these next 2 games, particularly tonight? Because like I said, tonight's going to be an emotional building. It's going to be a high-intensity game. Both teams, tons to play for. This is what hockey's all about at this time of the year, and the Jets need to be able to match that if they want to leave with at least 1 point tonight.
One thing that we didn't really talk about yesterday, and I just found myself thinking about it a few times just sitting in the seats last night of the game, was the fact that was the final regular season home game. And while it looks good that the Winnipeg Jets will be playing playoff hockey, coming up next week, it's not done yet, and it's not guaranteed. And it did cross my mind that this very likely, in my opinion, could be the final regular season game for one or more pretty key members of the Winnipeg Jets. We haven't talked a lot about Scheif in the last week because he's been playing quite well, but I mean, there was a time where he was missing in action coming out of that Carolina game and everything around it. I'd love to get your thoughts, Jeff, on what we've seen since Mark was moved from the center position to play with Dubois and Connor, what they've gotten out of that line, and kind of what that move has created on the second and the third line, with Ehlers driving the second and Nino Niederreiter, I think, fitting in absolutely perfectly with the style that Adam Lowry's playing right now, which is made for the playoffs.
Yeah, I absolutely, and I'll echo what several people have said. I love the makeup of their forward lines right now. The interesting part is it's by, I want to say, somewhat demanded in a way, because you have Mark Scheifele and you have Pierre-Luc Dubois both wanting to play with Kyle Connor. Okay, both of them want him to be their wingers. Well, Rick Bowness brought all three of those guys in and said, you want to play with Kyle Connor? You want to play with Kyle Connor? Well, here you go. Nope. Two people can't play center, at least not on paper. You can't put two people in center and Kyle Connor on the left wing. We need you to be, so Mark Scheifele, you need to be the winger on this line or whatever. But I mean, to me, that was just whatever, optics or whatever. Mark Scheifele still takes faceoffs. He wants to play with the playmakers. He feels like that brings out the best of his game, and it's working. And the trickle effect, I think a lot of people would have been like, whoa, like you're going to put all that talent, because Paul Maurice used to work in twos, right? He used to work with, he would find chemistry between two players and then try to find a third player who would complement them. So it was always Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, or it was Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor and so on and so forth. So it was almost kind of a break from that. And then when you added that third player and Mark Scheifele and considering Cole Perfetti's out, so your top six has already taken, a ding and one of the guys that's occupied a spot. And so you kind of worry about front loading things, because the reality is there were certain points in last season and even this season, I'd say more consistently this season in a positive way, is guys showed up more often, right? So Pierre-Luc Dubois would show up at the same time as Mark Scheifele. And I'd say last year when they missed the playoffs, it was Pierre-Luc Dubois had a great game one game. Then Mark Scheifele had a great game one game. Then Kyle Connor had a great game one game. So the fear is that if you put all three of those guys on a line, is if they all don't show up or they all don't play well, then that's a lot of scoring punch and complementary players to put around other guys that you're losing on. Well, the flip side of that is if they're on fire, they might be unstoppable. And I really do like the chemistry between that line. I think they're happy, playing with each other, which I think is an important part of this team. And then the trickle effect, right? How it created the other lines. I mean, Blake Wheeler looks good on that line. I like Blake Wheeler on that line with Nemestikov and Ehlers, right? Because those are two guys that create space for a guy who's coming to grips with the fact that he no longer is the guy who creates space for other people, right? Blake Wheeler's accepted that. We heard him talk about that a few games ago. I think he enjoys the fact that he can play with two smart players. Nikolai Ehlers is a smart player. He's not necessarily the easiest to adjust to because he's so fast, he's so quick. He's very individual, not in a selfish way, but in an effectiveness way, right? Like he's
Hammer, just on that, this sort of goes back to what we were talking about with the top line, with both Scheifele and Dubois wanting to play with Kyle Connor. I've always struggled this, and I don't really know the answer, and I'm not sure any of us really do. I'm sure people have theories, but I mean, Nikolai Ehlers, by every metric, is as productive as any player. Things happen when he's on the ice. If you're worried about your stats, if you want points, Nikolai Ehlers, it happens when he's out there. Why do you think this team for a couple of years has had such a hard time finding the right fit of one of two incredibly talented centers to play with a guy that, I mean, by the numbers is right there with Kyle Connor in his offensive contributions?
I don't want to say simple, but the simple answer would be possession of the puck. There's certain guys that like possession of the puck, right? I mean, there's no denying Nikolai Ehlers is the best on this team when it comes to generating speed through the middle of the ice and into the offensive zone. But if you are a player like Mark Scheifele, who also likes to hold on to the puck, or a Pierre-Luc Dubois, who also likes to hold on to the puck, or a player like Kyle Connor, who also has speed and likes to hold on to the puck, well, not everyone can hold on to the puck. And so things get a little bit disjointed. Nikolai Ehlers takes extremely short shifts, as we're finding out more and more over the last couple of days. So that maybe that plays a role into it. There's also a lot of, like I said, with Nikolai Ehlers, like he's a trigger man too. So he likes to shoot, right? He likes to drive the ice and shoot and whatever. So, and I don't want to get too, speculative and start pretending like I'm in guys' heads, but sometimes when you're playing with that kind of how Nikolai Ehlers generates offense, it doesn't necessarily complement with players like Mark Scheifele, who have admitted they like the more positional play, right? Positional play. Like Mark Scheifele would like to pass 3 or 4 times and set up a beautiful goal, right? Because this guy studies the game like few others, and he knows the seams and he knows the certain things. It's more calculated, right? Whereas Nikolai Ehlers, and this isn't a negative, it's a bit more chaotic, right? But it's effective, right? I mean, and that's what I think is so perplexing with Rick Bowness, is that he wants guys to drive the net. He wants traffic in front of the net. He wants chaos, right? And we've been seeing that over the last week, right? offense that can be sustainable for this team, whether it's getting to the net, whether it's crashing the net, whether it's rebounds, whether it's just, getting towards the net and then battling there. Nikolai Ehlers does that with his play. He not only protects possession, he gains the offensive zone, and he often puts the puck on net for rebounds. That's why he's also capable, as we've seen over the last week, setting guys up on the power play, finding guys, whatever. But he is that guy that creates the chaos. And that's what's so perplexing about Rick Bowness sometimes, is why aren't you building around this guy who seemingly is doing everything you're asking your offense, and instead of, bending over backwards in a lot of ways for the other guys who choose kind of not to play in the dirty areas or don't crash the net or go hard and do the other stuff that you've preached. So it is a little bit weird, but I do think in this stage, you've found a guy who I think, Nemestikov isn't going to complain about anybody or anything. I think Blake Wheeler is understanding that he's playing with two great players and they're doing well, and that certainly helps. I don't think he has any issues with that. And so I think Nick Ehlers has finally found not just one player, but two players that are, for lack of a better term, cool with how he plays. And again, I'm not trying to suggest there's a list of Jets players who are like, I don't want to play with Nikolai Ehlers, he's not good like this, or, blah, blah, blah. I just think it's one of those things when you're looking at how you generate offense as a player, sometimes that can contradict with the style that Nikolai Ehlers have. And I'll cap off the last question that you had. I think that third line is bananas. Like, I mean, Adam Lowry has finally figured it out after that 30-plus game stretch. I mean, he's been, you can argue he's been one of the catalysts that's gotten the Jets out of their funk here, scoring critical goals and putting pucks behind the net when guys like Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor were going on dry spells, Pierre-Luc Dubois included. And then you add a guy like Nino Niederreiter, who's pretty much a chameleon out there. He just adjusts to whatever setting, and it's crazy to add even more muscle, right? Because I'll steal this. I don't know if it was Sean or Kenny on their show the other day, but like Adam Lowry almost plays bigger when he plays on a line with Nino Niederreiter. And then, of course, Mason Appleton. I mean, that's the thing with Mason Appleton, right? Tons of speed, decent defensive game. He needs to score goals. And if he, as we saw him put away that goal the other day or last night, I'm not saying that's a critical moment in his season, but that's what that line is capable of when they're doing, when they're playing at their best. And it's not just hemming in the other team in the offensive zone. It's generating real opportunities and chances and chaos in front of the net and being rewarded for it. And those three guys, their games are feeling good. And that's, I think, the biggest takeaway of all this. And you mentioned the fourth line too, Huss. I think the fourth line has been pretty impressive over the last few games here. That confidence matters. It needs to fester. It needs to sit with this team. It's getting there. And I think everyone's just enjoying coming to the rink. And I think it really does start with finally finding that chemistry, in game 70 something on your forward, so that you're actually not only getting what you're asking, but you're gaining in a way that's finding you wins at the end of the night.
Well, and you know what? And listen, I mean, these are fun topics for Jet fans to talk about right now because, I mean, there were big questions as to whether this team could find itself, whether they could get back doing the things that, had made them successful in the past. And it started with Adam Lowry. I don't think there's any question about it. The Nashville game on the road, which was an absolutely crucial game, he scored that goal to get it to overtime. They get the win. Later on that trip, Anaheim, Arizona, against teams that, I mean, they were in tough against. Should they have been? That's a whole nother story. But when they were, it was Adam Lowry that was leading the way, was scoring those big goals. And that line right now, I mean, projecting to playoff hockey, assuming this team's able to get the job done and be there, they're going to be a problem, Jeff, for someone. And I know the Jets are going to go in as underdogs over whoever they're playing. But, I mean, if you have a third line that is playing the way that Adam Lowry and his line mates are right now, that is a great start going up against whoever the top line is on your opponent that allowed last change in the first couple games, and hopefully gives a little bit more room for the offensive players to really make it happen. But so much talk about the forwards. I have to say, like, Josh Morrissey's had a brilliant season, the best of his career. I don't think there's any doubt. But I think he did get into a little bit of a funk for a while there when the team was struggling as well. And Neil Pionk struggled for extended periods of time. These are the two guys that get the most ice time for Rick Bowness right now. And I have to say, I mean, Morrissey last night looked like the best of Morrissey that we've seen this year. And Neil Pionk has sort of quietly gotten better week after week for the last month maybe right now. And I think you can make an argument that this 6-man defensive unit right now, again, take it for what it's worth, who they've been playing as of late, is at least playing with the most confidence and the least mistakes that we've seen in a long time. And it was often the self-inflicted mistakes that were the reason why this team wasn't getting the results they needed.
Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of that. I mean, Josh Morrissey, I think like many on the team, kind of rode that wave of despair as the team, nosedive. I mean, he commented the other day about the noise outside the locker room and how they've been really dealing with it since January, right? Since they started to slip. And the same way he rode the wave of positivity through the beginning of the season and kept, getting on those stretches. That's kind of life of a professional hockey player, right? Trying to navigate the highs and lows. You hear a lot about learning how to be a pro, and a lot of that is doing just that, right? Trying to ride through the mental hurdles and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, Josh Morrissey, certainly a guy who, I'm voting this year, will certainly be on my ballot for a Norris candidate, and a guy that seems to, when the emotion ramps up, seems to not run away and get scared, seems to embrace it, whether it's looking up to the crowd and asking them to let's go, or it's finding a way to really put the game back in the Jets' corner after allowing a goal there by Carlson, a second. This is a guy who leads by example, and certainly you need Josh Morrissey feeling good. There were a lot of games, particularly, because the reality is when it's a nothing game and there's no one who really stood out, you look towards the leadership group to talk, and that means Josh Morrissey, many of whom in the media believe him to be the captain or the next captain of this team, has to kind of trudge out there and answer the questions after a tough loss or a tough stretch of losses, and you could see it weighing on him a little bit. So it's good to see him kind of get some of that joy back into it, and I mean, that always happens. You always hear winning fixes everything, right? And then Neil Pionk, I mean, holy smokes, right? Like the guy, it was tough sledding early on, even when he had something like 6 points or something in his first 12 games of the season. Even then, he wasn't, his defensive liability still exceeded his offensive output. And so he's certainly gone through a stretch of this year where it's been, up and down, and the expectations were so high because he was arguably the team's best D-man for 2 years before that. And so, I think that, whether it's signing a new contract, making big money, all the pressures that go into that, and again, just a lot of the stuff you have to deal with as a pro athlete, I think Neil Pionk's rounding out his game pretty well right now. And I mean, he's doing other things that work out. I mean, he leads the team in block shots by a fair margin. He's second in hits. So he it's, which kind of surprises me, because the Neil Pionk that I remember being at his best, I mean, he was laying guys out. And for someone who's, 6 feet, 185 pounds, he was putting guys into the ice way more often than you see now. But that's beyond my point. It's the fact that this guy is now finding his groove. He's playing well. The Jets need him to play well. They need Josh Morrissey to play well. They need everybody to play well, but they particularly need their guys, their best players, and those best players that log the most ice time to lead the way. And I think number 4 has been doing that certainly over the last couple of weeks.
And, speaking of getting into a groove, I mean, we can't not mention Connor Hellebuck. And I know he's played basically every game for the last 3.5 weeks right now. The more I see this, I joked to the guys before. I mean, I'd love to see at one point a coach to say, you know what, screw all this. He's going Arturs Urbe style with Maurice and starting 79 games of 82, because it honestly seems, Jeff, sometimes like the more he plays and the bigger the stakes are, the better he gets. And I have no doubt that he'll be ready to go tonight, assuming that he's in net right now. And we can talk a lot about what's changed around him, but the Winnipeg Jets aren't here in this situation if they haven't had the sort of goaltending they've got from Hellebuck really from day one of this season.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly for me, this team's MVP by far, obviously was helping them through the growing pains of a new coaching staff and new systems to start the year. And as I mean, you're not going to get, what is he started now? 63 games, I think was his last game. I mean, you're not going to get 63 stellar performances, but a lot of those, I'd say a majority of those 63 starts have been pretty damn good from Connor Hellebuck and has given his team a chance to win. I guess the question is, or the concern has always been leading up to, particularly these last 6 weeks, was, David Riddick wasn't even an option. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, whether it was back-to-backs, whatever, once these games mattered to the degree that, were critical, Connor Hellebuck's between the pipes. How's he going to feel for, a playoff run? Hopefully he's doing fine, but I think, you look at like last night's game, limited him to what did he have? 19 saves yesterday. If you can kind of manage his load, that's going to help out. But even that one game, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if they can figure this out on Tuesday or tonight, and get that point, clinch that playoff spot, even just that one game rest on Thursday, I think will help out, because the reality is as important as the guys we've been talking about, the top end talent all the way through the forwards, the D men, the Jets aren't going to go anywhere or do anything if Connor Hellebuck, isn't at the top of his game. And I guess the beauty in that is more often than not, he is.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, I'm here for Hellebuck playing every single night, but I think it's probably in everyone's best interest to get your damn point tonight and give the guy at least one night off before you hope to roll him out every second night for as long as you can go in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hammer, enjoy the Twin Cities and that beautiful weather, the game tonight, and of course, head out to Denver to finish this off. And fingers crossed, next week we'll be back in Winnipeg, or at least I'll be back in Winnipeg talking to you, whether you're on the road or there, about a first-round playoff series. The job isn't done yet, though. It might happen tonight. We'll look forward to your reporting on everything around the Winnipeg Jets on this final road trip of the regular season in the Winnipeg Free Press. Thanks for doing this, buddy. Thanks
for having me on, Huss. And I'll just echo something I said earlier for those who think I'm a massive cynic. I think the Jets get it done, whether this game or Thursday. I believe. But again, shout out to the chatters, those who are wrong and disagree, and those who are right that agree with me. You're the best to make this show.
I mean, I'm with you. I mean, and I think that it would be far better for this team to do it themselves than to have the Minnesota Wild or Colorado Avalanche do it against the Nashville Predators in one of their final two games tonight. So, hey, the table is set. Puck drops at 7:00. We'll read about it in the Freep afterwards. Enjoy it tonight, my man. Have a great trip, and we'll talk to you soon on WST.
Buckle up.
There's Hammer. Hammer always brings him out, too. Great crowd in live with us on YouTube today. Well over 500 people. Hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're just finding us, join us. We're live at 1 p.m. Monday to Friday for a couple hours, focusing on the Jets and everything happening around Winnipeg sports, but obviously the big stories in the National Hockey League as well. We are going to talk about the host Minnesota Wild coming up in a couple minutes with our good friend Jessi Pierce. But before we do that, as I mentioned, you might be wondering if you tuned in a little late, why am I looking a little different? What's the location? I'm here in Toronto because our great friends and sponsors at Princess Auto are putting on one of the biggest curling events in the country right now here in downtown in the old Maple Leaf Gardens, the Princess Auto Players Championship. And actually, as we are speaking right now, a all Manitoba matchup this afternoon between Matt Dunstone and Reed Carruthers is underway. Blanked in the first end. I'm hoping to get over right after this and check the last four ends. Nicholas Edin and Corey Dropkin. What's so cool about this event, like with the Grand Slams, is that it's both the top men's teams in the world and the top women's teams in the world. So Carrie Anderson, Jen Jones, all the greats there on the women's side here as well. It was men's for the first couple draws. We'll get the women count up tomorrow, and we'll have some great content coming up here on the program and on the socials throughout the week. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Roaring Game and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Consolidated Supply are the leaders in irrigation system, artificial turf, and golf carts is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba. And I also have other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchen options and small engine reparts and repair. Pop by and see him at the showroom, which is open to the public on 1395 Niagara Road East. And coming up next Thursday, April 20th, from 2 to 8 p.m., the grand opening of the showroom. There's food trucks, refreshments, some raffle prizes. Remo and I are going to pop by, and we might even be able to do the show there, or at least part of it. So anyways, we will definitely be there. Would love to see you there. So make a note to get out there for our pal Spicy Joe, Chris Buechler, and the gang opening up officially, as they weren't able to do that during the pandemic, 1395 Niagara Road East. And you can always check out Consolidated Supply on the internet at cte.ca. At Royal Sports, going to be a lot of white coming out of Royal, I think, in the next couple weeks. Fingers crossed. Royal Sports, of course, is Manitoba's #1 sports superstore with the biggest and best selection of licensed team gear featuring the Jets, Bombers, NHL, NFL, and tons of new Jays and Major League Baseball gear just in time for the start of the season. And, of course, the Jays home opener tonight. Spring stock is arriving daily as the snow melts with soccer, baseball, softball, tennis equipment, and a huge selection of bikes. So get ready for spring and summer at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And, hey, looking for a great spot to watch the Jets tonight and the Jays home opener? May I suggest your local Boston Pizza? Chow down on ice-cold schooners, great Boston, delicious Boston's wings, gourmet Boston's pizzas, and all the great stuff on their new BP feature menu. And if you're staying in, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, so we will get back to the Twin Cities in a few minutes with Jessi Pierce. Let's get Remo back in here in a minute. And Remo, we'll play this at the end. But the Jets have just tweeted out, and I knew that I had a feeling that this was coming right in and around the start of the playoffs, but basically a big campaign to help fill some of the empty seats that have been growing over the past couple of seasons. And this has been a topic we've talked about for years. I thought there was a little bit of a reset coming, and I thought the pandemic maybe delayed that a little bit, but it's quite clear that there's a lot of work to do for True North and the Winnipeg Jets to get some of the people, many people maybe listening to the show that were longtime supporters having tickets that maybe don't have right now. And I think anyone that's there on a regular basis and seeing some of the empty seats knows that this is something that they absolutely had to tackle. And, you know, you can only hope, I mean, if you are hoping for the long-term success and viability of this team here in Winnipeg, that, you know, some of those people can come back, the team can connect with some new fans, and obviously the team can have a nice run in the playoffs, which I'm sure would help a lot of that, because, listen, this team is better when the franchise is healthy, and let's face it, I mean, anyone that goes to a game will tell you, the games are a hell of a lot more fun than we got 15,000 in there as opposed to 12, 5, or 13.
Yeah, they put out a video just now, but they did have the press release that came out during that interview with Jeff. The Jets kick off their Forever Winnipeg campaign today in support of the team's 23-24 season ticket drive. 90-second video. It'll be shown tonight during the game on TSN, narrated by Kenny Omega, the Winnipegger and AEW star.
Nice.
The video created by their Jets in-house content marketing team. It asks, is Winnipeg an NHL city? The answer lies within the collective act of will that brought the NHL back in 2011, and the strong community of fans that continue to answer a resounding yes. Winnipeg is an NHL city. Thought harkens back to a time when it was the fans who fueled the return of the Jets to Winnipeg, and reinforces that so long as fans are in Canada Life Centre cheering on their team, Winnipeg Jets will be in Winnipeg forever. I noticed Scott and Mike pointing out that quote saying, again, as long as fans are in Canada Life Centre cheering on their team, the Winnipeg Jets will be in Winnipeg forever. Filled with rich visuals, and we'll show the ad later. And they're kicking off. They're trying to get season tickets, having a lot of perks, saying pre-sale access, flexible interest-free payments, the ticket savings on single game seats, food discounts, the merch discounts, the other exclusive deals, and season ticket member contests through their app, ticket swap, and other stuff. So they also one thing I did see, they had premium and regular season ticket members. Or the premium members, they have some new areas like redoing the Bud Lounge and redoing the downstairs.
And last night at the game, I mean, if you're around the old Moxies, a whole bunch of that was cut off, and the work's already happening on that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that is going to be, a huge endeavor. And I think the Jets, we talked about this before. I think they took fans for granted maybe for a few years, and I think they made some mistakes. And I think they're now working incredibly hard to try to get some of those people back and avoid those mistakes again. And we'll talk about that going forward. Right now, though, let's get back to the Twin Cities because our old friends, the Minnesota Wild, are waiting for the Jets today. And you know what the Wild are trying to do? They're trying to prevent the Jets from clinching a playoff spot and trying to sweep a season series. And, you know, when we talk Wild, we got to bring in Jessi Pierce from the Bardown Beauties and NHL.com. Jessi, what's going on?
What's going on? You know, the Minnesota Wild would love to play spoiler this evening, their final home game of the regular season. And what better way to close it out than with the Jets? I love this rivalry. I love what Jets fans can bring. A lot of times you'll see them down here in the Twin Cities. Hopefully we'll get a true north during the anthem from our friends up north.
Hey, you know what? I mean, I agree as well. I mean, whether you're a Jet fan going down to XL Energy Center or the Wild fans that come up here to rep their team, I mean, it is a fun rivalry. Really the only true rivalry that I think we have here in Winnipeg that, you know, you can actually get in the car in a day and drive there and be at the game. I mean, everything else is a pretty big haul. And that's what makes, you know, that rivalry really since day one so special. It's been interesting this year, though. You know, the Jets sort of had their way with the Wild for a few years ago, but things have really changed. I mean, that Black Friday massacre in November, you know, people still have a bad taste in their mouth about that. And it was funny because that was when the Jets were playing some of their best hockey and were first place, you know, in the division and, you know, in the conference. And then, of course, the game back here in Winnipeg a few weeks ago, which went the Wild's way, and also had the injury to Kirill Kaprizov. Now, Logan Stanley has been in the press box basically for the last 2 or 3 weeks, almost since that game. But I imagine there was probably going to be somewhat of a quote-unquote welcoming party for big number 64 if he was in the lineup. But the fans might have to go up and act like a box of popcorn in the press box because I'm not sure they'll get their revenge tonight. But just thoughts on that and, of course, the return of Kaprizov and how big that is for Minnesota.
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, the fans in the Twin Cities were calling for Logan Stanley's head. They certainly were very unhappy losing their superstar for the season. But two good things out of that. The Minnesota Wild found their secondary scoring because they had to. Matt Boldy all of a sudden started shooting the puck and scoring. Joel Eriksson, Marcus Johansson, that was the top line without question. And you were getting goals from really everybody. So the weight wasn't just from Logan Stanley on Kirill Kaprizov's back, but it was also the Minnesota Wild on his back at that time. The second good thing for Winnipeg Jets fans, we asked Kirill what he thought of the play, and he said, you know what, it's a hockey play. I could have maybe positioned my body differently, so he certainly had no ill will toward Logan Stanley if he were to play. Obviously, everyone had their ideas of repercussions, but yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, it sounds crazy, and it still looks crazy, but the Wild got hot right after Kaprizov went out. So, I mean, I think it was maybe a good thing. Obviously, you hate to say that because, again, he is a superstar, not just in Minnesota, but across the entire league. But it just got this secondary scoring finally clicking. It's something that Minnesota had been missing all season long. It was either Kirill scoring or nobody scoring at all. So there was that benefit. But yes, Kaprizov is back. I reckon he will play tonight. A bunch of those guys were resting, quote unquote, last night when they played in Chicago. So I think Kirill will come back. And again, to play spoiler for you guys and to play spoiler for the Stars and Avs, who are also trying to fight and clinch home ice this evening, which they cannot do with Minnesota getting some points here in St. Paul.
Well, you know what? I mean, I just want to ask you that. Maybe you can take our listeners through it because, to be frank, everyone has been freaking out with every single game and possible point of Winnipeg. And we've been looking at Nashville and Calgary for the last little while. The gap's sort of been where we haven't been talking about the top three in the Central. I mean, every time you look at the standings, those three teams at times have been tied. There's still a lot to play for the Avs, for the Stars, and Minnesota tonight and right through to the buzzer on 82.
Exactly. I mean, Minnesota needs to basically win out. They need their 2 points each and every night, and they've needed it for the past couple weeks. I mean, once in a blue moon, you'd see Minnesota sneak up into that top Central spot, but Dallas and Colorado are having fantastic seasons. Colorado coming in hot as of late. Right now, I think Minnesota's looking and hoping to skip Colorado in the first round at all costs. So you don't want Colorado to fall to that second spot. You don't want Dallas to hop up. Again, home ice would be ideal in either situation, but Minnesota just needs to win out. They need their 2 points. They need their 2 points against Dallas coming up later this week as well, because Colorado has that game in hand from Floodgate against the Preds. So that will be one final game on Friday. But yeah, it's been a tight race. It reminds me of how the Central Division was a couple of years ago when it was close. Minnesota was always that bubble team, always trying to figure out where they're going to be. At least now they've clinched their spot in the playoffs. It's just, how's it going to look in that first round?
Well, and you know what, for Minnesota fans, and I mean, that is the state of hockey. I mean, I just think about, following your feed and, other friends and colleagues that are, in the media and hockey people. I mean, you go from the Minnesota high school tournament, which is something so special and unique. I mean, obviously the Frozen Four on the weekend, and then Stanley Cup playoff hockey. This has been a great run and a great season, I'm sure on a lot of levels, but the Wild is the big team. Doing this, would you say it's unexpected? I mean, I'll be honest, we talked about this $14 million cap hit and everything that they're dealing with because of the buyouts. Bill Guerin looks like a freaking genius right now. What they've been able to do, the players they've added, the responsibilities they've given to some of those young players like a Matt Boldy that you said. And I think everyone knows that this team is going to be a hell of a tough out against whoever they play come playoff time.
I mean, for the second straight year, Billy Guerin pulls some magic out of a hat. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this year in particular, coming in, you knew that they weren't going to be able to replicate last season. Last season was a franchise best regular season year for your Minnesota Wild. You had career years from everybody, including Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, Jules-Eric Sinek, and then you also send Kevin Fiala to LA because you couldn't afford to keep him under that tightened cap restraint. So everybody was kind of looking at this Minnesota squad, taking a giant step back, saying, you know what, this isn't going to be good. They lost this offense, yada, yada, yada. And certainly the first 3 games of the year, they did. They got outscored. They were letting 7 goals in through those first 3 games, 3 losses straight for the Wild. So I think everybody was kind of hoeing and humming and thinking, okay, maybe they'll barely get into the playoffs. Maybe they'll get into this wild card spot. But again, they turned the heat up, and Bill Guerin made some good moves at the trade deadline. Once again, John Klingberg, bringing him in, Marcus Johansson, who has been phenomenal for Matt Boldy, and just really good in the Minnesota lineup since he entered. And then we can't talk about this all without Philip Gustafsson, another offseason transaction that people questioned. They said, what do you do? Is it this is my child who would agree with my goaltending, I imagine. He's bringing me beef jerky. Yeah.
Special guest star appearance every time you're on WST. It's the best.
What a sweetheart. And then Philip Gustafsson has been playing out of his mind. I don't think anybody came into this year saying, oh yeah, Gus for Talbot, that's going to be fine. That's going to work out. I mean, he has been the 1A and Marc-Andre Fleury has been the 1B really most of the year. And it's been a tandem that is the best Minnesota has seen since they went on a division run, in my opinion. So you like it, you love it. They're playing well at the right time. And again, I think the goaltending is going to be the difference maker, whether they get out of the first round for quite some time or whether they don't and fall back into regular routine.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. And I was going to ask you about the goaltending. We'll get to maybe who's going to be the guy that'll get the tab for game 1 come playoffs. But speaking of Bill Guerin, I mean, I think back to last off season when all of a sudden Cam Talbot was getting a little cantankerous and kind of, making a few, statements that he wasn't too happy. I mean, Bill Guerin literally said, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Beat it. And he turned around that trade. And I think a lot of people thought, well, listen, in the cap situation that they're in, they're just going to be saving some money. Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be the guy. That actually hasn't been the case all year. And I think you could make a big time argument that Gustafsson has been the guy this year. I mean, just thoughts on the move that Guerin made, the message that sent to maybe people in Minnesota and around the league, but also the performance they've got from Gustafsson and what that might mean for game 1.
I mean, it's certainly going to Bill Guerin and addressing that first. I mean, that's been his MO since he came in. The Parise Suter buyouts, the first part saying, hey, you know what? I'm trying to build a culture in this room. I'm trying to get the guys to gel together. And if you don't fit into that model, then see ya, I'm not going to do anything about it. Even with Kevin Fiala and not being able to afford him, there was no, oh, we're sorry. It was just, it's business. And to Bill Guerin, it is business. He knows that more than anybody. He's won the cup before. He knows what that takes. And so with Cam Talbot, he said, you're right. See you later. There's no time for quote unquote BS, as he put it nicely. But yeah, I think it's worked out well because Philip Gustafson and Marc-Andre Fleury are two very different goaltenders. And I think that's good. Gus is so calm and so confident and just goes in and is very technically sound. Whereas Marc-Andre Fleury, we all know and love the theatrics that he can provide, the big saves, the windmills, the kicks, all of that. And it's great, but it's two different goaltenders, which in a tandem is perfect, especially when, and here's a little secret, I believe they are planning to go with that tandem through the playoffs. They're not going to just lean on one hot hand. Again, that's my perception because as Dean Evson told me when I asked him about that, he said, it's worked all year. Why can't it work in the playoffs? We think it can work in the playoffs. And I think you'll probably see Philip Gustafson in net for game 1, and we'll see how that shakes out. You probably see Marc-Andre Fleury in net for game 2, no matter which way it goes, just because they have been playing so well. And again, that's going to be the huge hinge whether Minnesota moved forward out of the first round.
There's probably some old school Jet fans right now that are recoiling right now, thinking about Bob Murdoch rotating Bob Essenza and Stefan Beauregard back in 1.0. But we won't go down that road. Fleury certainly has the experience. Gustafson has the numbers this year, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of coaches right now that I think envy the decisions that the Minnesota Wild have to have on their plate. Just quickly before we go, tonight's game with Winnipeg, the Jets would love nothing more than to actually go and get their playoff spot by earning a win against the Minnesota Wild, not backing in with the Nashville loss. And also, I think, making a statement that they're better than the team that has not fared well at all against Minnesota. What do you feel is the vibe in that Wild locker room, knowing that they can complete a season sweep of a division rival that's had their way with Minnesota in the past, and not to mention prevent them from cheersing each other, saying a job well done, we'll see you in game 83?
I mean, I think you always want to play spoiler. It's kind of fun to ruin a celebration, especially, like I mentioned, it's Minnesota's last home game of the regular season in front of their fans. It's their time to really get the crowd riled up, get them pumped before they head into playoffs. So they have a lot to play for in just the respect manner, but also because they don't want to lose out on the opportunity for home ice. Again, you need other things to fall as they may, but Minnesota has a little bit of say in their own destiny as well. So it's two teams that are going to be gutting it out for a lot, including pride and points and playoffs, the 3 Ps, if you will. So I'm expecting a good one. I'm excited for it. My fingers are already nervous because I imagine I will have to have 2 stories ready to file at buzzer because I can see overtime. I can see extra hockey tonight. But again, it's going to be an exciting one. I know I personally cannot wait.
I don't think there's anyone in the WST chat would mind going to OT, because the 1 point is really all the Jets need, but I know they would like to do it themselves and get to, and who knows? It's probably unlikely the way things are working out with the Jets. Probably if they do get that 8th spot, shifting over to the Pacific against the top team, but you never know. And we all remember that playoff series a few years ago. I'm sure it'd be a hell of a lot of fun if we saw that at some point in the future. Jets, though, they just got to get there first, yes, and then figure out who they're playing. Jessi, thanks so much. Fill people in on where they can get all your great content. I know you've got the pod going on, and probably a very busy woman heading into the playoffs covering the Wild for NHL.com.
I cannot wait. Bring on the chaos. Bardown Beauties. You can find us on Apple, YouTube, anywhere you listen to your podcast. New episodes released each and every week. I'm working on a very special guest, which even Winnipeg Jets fans might appreciate, with Jacques Lemaire, bringing him out on the call. Love me some Jacques. Love me talking some zone defense. So that should be a lot of fun. And then all my stories at NHL.com. I'll be covering and following the Wild throughout the playoffs as far as they can take me. And always good to chat with you, Andrew.
You know what? You make it so much fun, even though you're coming to us from our arch rivals in the Twin Cities. No, it'll be a lot of fun, Jessi. Hopefully we can have a great chat at some point in the postseason. You be well, and enjoy some nice weather for finally. We've made it through this, I think.
I think so. There's going to be no blizzard like there was that year that the first round of Winnipeg and Minnesota took place, right? That's fingers crossed, shorts are out, we're good to go.
There better not be. Have a great one. Thanks for doing this. There is Jessi Pierce. Check out the Bardown Beauties wherever you get your pods, and definitely check out her work covering the Minnesota Wild for NHL.com. All right. Listen, I'm going to get Remo back in here, but cheers to a potential clincher tonight. Maybe you can get your little brown jug chilling in the fridge, and if the Jets get it done, crack one open with a friend. Of course, if you're thinking about a great new little brown jug beer, try the generic lager. It's just launched. Your basic lager, just better. Impressively standard in the best way, light and clean to taste with a mellow flavor and crisp finish. Now Manitoba can support local without having to move away from the domestic taste they've come to expect with a light beer. Available in 8-packs or by the can through the tap room or through vendors. And it'll be in Liquor Mart shortly and available by a single can starting in June. The fellas on the PGA Tour back out of the Masters and heading to Harbour Town this weekend. We'll hit that in the lock shop tomorrow. Rory McIlroy's actually pulled out. We'll find out what's up with that and make some picks tomorrow in the lock shop. Of course, all of our golf reports and our golf work all year long, including the fun stuff on the course, brought to you by our friends at Breezy Bend, one of Manitoba's top private clubs with a championship course, top-notch practice facilities, and the best 19th hole around on their beautiful course-side patio. With great men's, ladies, and junior programs, Breezy Bend's the perfect long-term golfing home for you and your family. Find out more at breezybend.ca or call our pal Corey Johnson for more information about becoming a member. Hey, any of your university students out there thinking about a dream job for the summer, need to send a resume into our pal Paterson over at Aikens Lake. We've been telling you for years, it is an absolute summer getaway paradise with some of the best people around. And know a lot of young people that have spent some of the best summers of their lives working out at Aikens, earning and saving money and having the time of their lives. They're looking to fill out the team with a few more guides as well as servers. You can send a resume into pitt@aikenslake.com. And if you're thinking about a family and friends trip or a corporate trip, they're pushing 85% fully booked for the summer. So find out more online at aikenslake.com or give Pitt an email and get more information, pitt@aikenslake.com. All right, we do have to get to the Coolbet Lines coming up, see what the odds makers have for this Wild Jets matchup tonight. But let's get Remis back in here. And man, I always have so much fun with Jessi on the program. She has really become one of my favorites from the other markets. Does such a great job with her content. And listen, Minnesota Wild fans have a lot to be excited about with the season that they've had right now. And she's very right. They would like to spoil the Jets party tonight.
We had someone in chat say, every time you bring her on, the Jets get whooped. I had a good laugh. We did mention the Jets' stats against Minnesota this year, 0-3, with only 4 goals scored, and I think it was 13 or 14 against. Not a recipe for success. And she had me, I was feeling pretty confident about the Jets' play lately. They can go in, they can get a point. And then she starts talking about, it's Minnesota's final regular season home game. They rested some guys yesterday. And then I'm like, maybe I'm not as confident. And then she said, I can see this going to overtime. I was like, great, that's all you need. You don't need.
We'll take it.
Who cares if they win? I know you said the Jets want to do it and win. Who cares? Get to overtime as long as you get the point.
Okay, I have seen this in the past. Yeah. If let's say this happens, and they're counting down 10, 9, 8, whatever. It's 2-2 in the third period, and it gets to the buzzer. Is there big celebrations on the Jets bench?
Yes.
Knowing that they have made the playoffs. And because really at that point, everything else is trivial. The job is to get the job done. That being said, I think for the players and certainly fans, they'd love to come out with 2 tonight, considering the way these games are going tomorrow. But I think if you put that scenario in front of anybody associated with the Winnipeg Jets saying this one's going to OT tonight, they would take it without blinking and tell Big Save Dave to get ready to start in Colorado with the final game of the year.
Yeah, I think I think they'll keep it professional. I think there will be some high-fiving. I don't think they're going to be popping bottles there on the bench at the end of the third if they tie, but I think there will be some relief, some celebrations. Hoping tomorrow is a big show for us in terms of talking about officially a clinch and playoff matchups, but we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. This is a tough test against Minnesota. Kaprizov is back. Although they did have Joel Eriksson-Ek who got hurt, and he's going to be out for a couple weeks. He's been playing so well. Along with Matt Boldy emerged as the hottest player in the NHL over the last couple weeks. So, and he did get on the board yesterday. It was the Boldy, Johansson, Gaudreau line carried them over Chicago. So we'll wait and see. And I'll see people in chat saying, is Marcus Foligno in? He seems to cause the Jets problems. I'll remember his so awesome Superman punch. Remember that? Remember when he did the Superman punch? How so awesome and viral it was? God, didn't you just love that? So maybe we'll see that again.
Roman Reigns tribute in a National Hockey League game.
So wild. So we'll wait and see what happens. 7 o'clock start today. Not that 6. So people are asking, why is it always a 6 with the Jets lately? They've had a lot of Sportsnet games and want to be on national TV. You got to start at 6 p.m. for those people on the East Coast that like to go to bed early.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, Saturday night games, if you're on a hockey night in Canada, that game's starting at 6. We don't get enough of those, to be perfectly honest.
Yes.
Although, we've talked about this before. I know there's always some people that'll bitch, but I don't mind the late games. And I'm just telling you right now, folks, if the Jets are the 8th spot and are playing either Vegas or the Edmonton Oilers in the first round, get ready for some 8:30 starts at Canada Life Center in those games, because in all likelihood, there'll be an early game that day, and then that Western Conference Series of the Pacific will be the late game. So we may have a few of those coming up. Remo, fire up the Coolbet lines if you can. Of course, here in Toronto right now, and Blue Jays home opener tonight. Alek Manoah on the bump. A lot of excitement around here for that. You're going to also get over to Coolbet and check out the latest odds and draws on the players, the Princess Auto Players Championship, which I'll be heading over right afterwards to see what's going on between the two Manitoba teams, Matt Dunstone and Reed Carruthers. As far as the National Hockey League goes tonight, though, we've got the Jets and the Minnesota Wild. What's the number on that, Remo? Is that a pick'em?
Man, yes.
What?
There's no what? Wild minus 108, Jets minus 109. How does that work, Huss? They're making money on this either way. You got to call up Coolbet.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's obviously been some money coming in on the Jets, because that opened at Minnesota minus 120 and the Jets at even money. So, again, they're on the suspended list until the playoffs, or until they at least get in there. I don't want to have any part in mushing the team, but if you do want to jump on it, listen, I thought they'd at least be a plus money underdog going again up against Minnesota with the amount of guys that they rested last night. Is the total 5.5 in this game?
Total's 5.5, and just for Money Puck has this close too. Money Puck's got 47.5% for the Jets and 52.5% for Minnesota, so they have it very close as well.
Well, maybe Jessi's right. Some free hockey. Hey, actually, click on that. What's a draw? Click on that home tie away. What's the
plus
draw tonight?
315.
Oh, that might be. What do you think about that, folks? Plus 315 on the draw, and then we can celebrate a win and the point for the Winnipeg Jets to get into the playoffs. Other games tonight, we've got Washington at the Boston Bruins. Boston, a big home favorite. Same thing with Carolina at home against the Detroit Red Wings. Toronto Maple Leafs playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that sounds like Wall is going to get the start. They've been screwing around with their goalies the last few games, and I guess knowing that they're going to be playing Tampa, it's no big deal. They don't want to put Samsonov in, or Matt Murray, or a guy on an ATO, so it's Wall, and Vasilevsky will start tonight, so not surprising. What does Coolbet have for the Lightning there? 185?
Lightning are at minus 185. That is correct.
Sounds about right. Bedard Bowl, Blue Jackets and Flyers. Flyers the big home favorite. Buffalo Sabres still alive, Reem. If you think that Buffalo can keep the dream alive, they're plus 190 on the money line tonight. And then another one, Edmonton and the Colorado Avalanche. The Oilers, a very slight favorite in Colorado, which is quite interesting. And Vegas, a favorite, albeit without Jack Eichel, taking on the Kraken. And if you look at the conference standings right now, it's Vegas up 2 on the Edmonton Oilers. They also have the regulation. Oh, no, the Oilers have the ROW. So I don't think Vegas can clinch tonight unless they win and the Oilers lose. Vegas is up 107-105. And then you look at the Avalanche at 104. I guess technically the Avalanche could beat Edmonton and get to 106. Vegas could lose to Seattle, and then the Avalanche, with 2 games left after tonight, would have the opportunity to potentially take the crown. But I'm hoping if the Jets get in, it's either Vegas or Edmonton. I want those late night games. I like the thought of going through the Pacific Division, and it's either going to be potential revenge opportunity against Vegas or a playoff series against a player that I think everyone will remember, win or lose, the opportunity to go up against Connor McDavid at the height of his powers after one of the great seasons in the NHL history. So all that needs to happen is for the Jets to get that point, and then we can just dive into all those combinations and permutations on tomorrow's show.
Fingers crossed, Hustler. I'm having, a lot of flashbacks. I saw Joe Pascucci post on Twitter today. In 2018, the Jets played Minnesota in Game 1. I was going through some of my own pictures and videos from that I took. You're remembering Joe Morrow. I'm thinking yesterday we're getting close to, gatherings and parties to watch playoff hockey. People want to get together and support the team. You've seen that in the last homestand, the atmosphere and the fan support. I think it's been great to watch. It's really too bad they had 2 months of, play matching the worst teams in the league. You do wonder if they have turned a corner here or they'll revert back to that, but I think the feeling is good, and you want to keep it going tonight with at least a point against Minnesota. Otherwise, we'll be watching a lot of Nashville. I'm pretty familiar with Tommy Novak and Evangelista, who have been putting up points. I want to say this, actually, Tommy Novak scored the winner. I've taken him a lot. Taken him a lot in DraftKings because he was really cheap when he first came up. But he's got, people say, oh, Nashville's got an AHL team. I mean, he was on Milwaukee at 26 and 25. He's got 41 points in 49 games, Tommy Novak. So these guys who they've brought up have contributed. They're players.
Well,
as you
they've
said,
made the most of the opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been getting chances to play regularly in the NHL, and they're showing, listen, Nashville's going to most likely fall short. Touch wood. I guess it's not done yet. But, I mean, what that organization gained from having all those young players play in important games, get experience going into next season, and then you add, Cal Foote, a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth round pick for Tanner Jeannot, the second rounder for Nino Niederreiter, although I still think that was a steal for the Winnipeg Jets. Barry Trotz, as he moves into the general manager's chair for the outgoing David Poile, has a lot to work with that young Nashville team, but it might take a little while. All right, Reem, before we go, do you want to play this video for folks? I
think we should. It's getting a lot of response online. The Jets starting their marketing campaign, and I think people are feeling threatened. That's the response that I'm seeing here. You haven't seen it. People wanted to see your reaction.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Okay.
A live debut or premiere, if you will, of this Forever Winnipeg video on I believe it's the start of a season ticket drive just in time for the playoffs, and obviously something that this team absolutely needs. Let's hear it for the first time on WST.
Winnipeg. Whoever thought that this town could be an NHL city? Too cold. Too small. Too ordinary. Some say that Winnipeg is a collective act of will, a place founded on strength of community, molded by conviction and a fighting spirit that echoes through generations. Through storms and floods, cynics and skeptics, we count on each other and we persevere and thrive. Our team is a symbol of that will and the bond we share as one Winnipeg Jets family. From across the prairies down to Portage Avenue, Polar Blue is our lifeblood. The rink is our heartbeat. The loudest fans, the whiteout, the show. Against all odds, what once was lost, we found once more. This is our team! Our pride. But never forget, never again. So is Winnipeg an NHL city you better believe it. But it takes all of us. Join us.
All right, there it is. So if you're listening on the podcast, it finishes up with foreverwinnipeg.ca. And I haven't looked at it yet, but I imagine that is a push to get some people back on board with the club. And, I've talked about this a lot over a number of years. I understand why some people left. Obviously, the pandemic, there were some people that, didn't agree with the rules, and that was a big, big blow to the team, losing, 10 or 15% of ticket holders, which kind of shocked me, but it is what it is. And they made some mistakes along the way. But this team needs the support of this entire community. Basically buying season tickets. We got a team back because we went like that and sold 13,000 season tickets, and there has been some erosion of that. And listen, as someone that cares about the team, as someone that is going to be in the building, I've renewed my seats. I think everyone wants to see the team thrive, but also to see that building get back to where it has been. And the crowds have been amazing lately. I can't say enough about the fans that have been there, but we're missing a few people. And I hope that, the organization can do the work that they need to connect with these folks and get them to come back. And as I say, that's going to be, I don't want to say it was subtle in there, but have to realize that, if you lose, if people aren't in the building, what are we doing here, right? This is not a spot where you can just count on it to be full every single day. I know from talking to people in the organization, the percentage of season tickets that are owned by fans as opposed to corporations is so much higher here in Winnipeg than everywhere else. And for whatever reasons, when you lose some of those people, it really makes it tough to fill it in. And listen, a half-empty building or whatever is not going to cut it for anybody involved. And I know, people will say, "Oh, David Thompson's the richest owner in the league." What does it look like if you keep on losing all your season tickets and you don't have the real support of a team? What's anyone doing it for? So, I'm impressed with it. Love the fact that Kenny Omega was doing it. Big Kenny Omega guy, and hopefully this team will make it into the playoffs tonight. Hopefully they'll be able to plan for, a great fun run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think in the offseason, there's going to be some big, big changes with the hockey club, regardless of what happens. But hopefully the biggest changes is maybe a reversal of some of the erosion of the season ticket base and getting some of those people back. And as I say, it's good for everyone when that place is rocking. And as I say, I'm going to be there one way or the other, but I hope you all will too. And no, I have no stake in the game other than wanting this to be. Well, I guess I do have a stake in the game.
We do have stake.
We do have a stake in the game because this show pops a lot more with the Winnipeg Jets. And as we can see the excitement in the chat today and the amount of podcast downloads, I guess it would be naive not to say we do have a stake in the game. But one way or the other, whether I was doing this or not, I'm going to be up in 316. And frankly, maybe now that we've got some empty seats, maybe we can finally put that group together. Maybe we get some WSTers to join me, in my opinion, the best section in Canada Life Center, 316 for next year, and make something happen. What did you think, Reem?
Yeah, I like the video. I like the pictures. I like that they got Kenny Omega to do the voiceover. I'm seeing, a lot of different comments from people here in our chat saying, some people saying, yeah, this is great. And I agree. They do need to sell tickets. I think some people want to see, maybe a bit more accountability and direction over the last couple of years before they're willing to open their wallet. I hear what they have, but you go to the website, they have information on memberships and premium memberships, and maybe something to consider.
When did all that change? And listen, I don't disagree that there's been some mistakes, and we can talk about the hockey product and the general manager and player moves and stuff like that. To me, I think it was, for a few years, hey, they had the 13,000, they had the waiting list. I think I'll be honest. I spent a lot of time in that business. I got a lot of people I consider friends working there. I don't think they did a very good job of retaining and making sure that people knew how important they were and how appreciated they were for what they were doing for the team. And I think they've acknowledged that. And certainly I've seen as a season ticket holder over the last, couple of years, but especially this year, a renewed focus on that. But when it comes down to it, Reem, I mean, people, when the Jets came back, everyone stepped up unconditionally saying, we want to be back in the National Hockey League. And, unfortunately now, I guess there are some people that, will do it, but there are conditions. And unfortunately, you're not always going to be a Stanley Cup contender, especially in this market. I mean, I've said a number of times on this show, I think Winnipeg fans, especially when things were going the way they were towards the last couple months of the season, would appreciate somewhat of a reset, would appreciate some new blood, some new faces of the club. And, a team that, at least would come out, work their asses off every night, embody what Winnipeg is, and work towards doing it. But listen, everyone has their own choices to spend what they want their money on. And I think we also have to acknowledge that there's been some real economic challenges and hardships with so many people in so many different industries over the last little while. But when it comes down to it, we're either an NHL city that supports our team and has the, and has the fans to remain a strong member of the National Hockey League. Or I don't really want to think about the or is, but I think we know what the or is because it happened already once here in Winnipeg. So everyone, check it out. And I haven't seen the site yet. I will certainly check it out, but I'm in, and I will just tell you this personally from me to you. I know tickets are quite expensive, but P6s, I think affordable. Get a few friends, tell them you want to be in 16, and let's rock that place next year. And hell, let's rock it next week. Hopefully, if the Jets can get a point tonight. That, I think, where's the focus tonight, Remis, is, but I know this is going to be a big story throughout the summer, and I know that all the people there at True North are going to be working very, very hard to try to maybe win some fans back, earn some trust, with some others, and bottom line is make this what it has been in the past, which has been just an incredible place to, just think about how this has changed. Since 2011, it's sort of like pre-2011 and post-2011, as the time that everything changed in our city. And I certainly would not want to go back to what it was before. As much as I love having the Moose and all that, Winnipeg and having this National Hockey League team really does put us on the map. And pretty much my favorite memories over my entire life, many of them, probably most of them, involve two rinks, Winnipeg Arena, Canada Life Center, not to mention a lot of fun at the football stadium as well. So, I don't know. I think maybe we would leave it at that and focus first on this team getting the job done tonight and booking a spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been a story going on in the background of this season. We talk about guys on expiring contracts. Well, next year, Hellebuck, Scheifele, Wheeler. And then, in the background, you have non-sellouts. Mike McIntyre tweeting with the average attendance this year has been about 14,000. It's over 1,000 short of capacity. And you've kind of seen that through the pandemic, but the team, trying to address that this summer. And I think that is something we will be talking about, the off ice as well as the on ice. As I just said, I think there was some fan fatigue with the team. And I see people criticizing maybe the effort level that we've seen at times, and people want to support a team that comes out every night and plays hard. And, for times we didn't see that, but we've certainly seen that here over the last homestand. And what perfect timing has to put this out, as, they haven't quite clinched the playoff spot. You would, if you did sign up, you would get pre-sale access to playoffs. So they are trying to put a lot of benefits in if you were to subscribe, if you were to sign up as a season ticket member. So again, we'll be following this through the off season. And it's definitely, the business side is certainly a backstory of the on ice product.
Yeah, and hey, listen, I'm not gonna BS any of you. I'm gonna be supporting this because I think that it is incredibly important for our city. And I told you this after. You want to see me all fired up. When we were super choked about what was happening with the team on the ice, was after the loss in San Jose in that Wednesday show, where we had the most comments and feedback of I think any show we've ever done. But it came down to a couple of things. The passion that we have for the team, and the passion that we really I personally didn't think we were seeing from the guys on the ice, but it is still there. It has been there in these last 5 home games. And again, I keep going back to the people that have been there and the energy that they've been bringing. But, we fill up some of those rest of those seats, bring some of those other people back. And, hopefully that can be a big catalyst to helping the hockey team on the ice, but also the organization make sure that we're going to be here. What's they're saying? Forever Winnipeg, that, we'll be talking about Winnipeg Jets hockey forever here in the city of Winnipeg. And, at the end of the day, it is a business. We got to sell some seats, and hopefully this will go well, because I do know they've got a lot of work to do. I know that there was, a big drop off last year. We've seen it. I would imagine that with the somewhat urgency and the timing of all of this, I think that they need to go sell a couple 3,000 seats to get back to where this team was, and it would be a real healthy spot going forward. And anyways, as I say, everyone's going to make their own decisions on that. But I think we all agree as hockey fans, and at least the people that are here listening to this show or with us on YouTube, knows that Winnipeg, with this city and the province behind the Winnipeg Jets and filling that building, makes it a better place for everyone. And let's cross our fingers that hopefully we can get to that. And a great way to kind of kickstart that would be beating the Minnesota Wild tonight and booking a spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just on our way out, you can hit us up in the comments as well of this. But it will be our Why Not question of the day. What was your first thought on the Forever Winnipeg video that we just played on the program? Obviously, there's plenty of other places where you can make comments on it. You can hit us up on Twitter. You can hit us up, at Sports Talk WPG on any of the social channels. But also hit us up in the comments of the YouTube video today and let us know what your thoughts are. And certainly, when the time is, we're going to focus on what's happening on the ice right now. But this is a story, and we'll certainly get the right people to come on and talk about it as they push this forward with a lot of work to do this summer, and something that, frankly, that organization has not felt, that I don't think really been in this situation before, dating back to that incredible start in 2011. That's our Why Not question of the day for our friends over at Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. All right, that is going to do it for us. I'm going to go see what's happening with Reed Carruthers and Matty Dunstone around the corner at the old Maple Leaf Gardens. Blue Jays home opener tonight, but the main event for folks in Winnipeg is the Jets and Wild. Can the Jets book their ticket to the playoffs? We'll find out at 7 p.m. Enjoy the game, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already. And I'll look forward to coming back to you live tomorrow from Toronto with the latest on the Winnipeg Jets, Blue Jays, curling, and more. But hopefully talking about some potential playoff matchups for the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks for being with us today, folks. Tell a friend about WST when you have a chance. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll catch you tomorrow right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.